Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming through, and we apologize for starting so late. A very warm welcome to all of you that are sitting here this fine morning. We've got much to celebrate here in Wentworth, and to all of our distinguished guests that have traveled from all around the country to be here. We've got people all the way from Cape Town, Johannesburg, Pretoria, just to be part of what Wentworth is doing. My name is Darian Smith, and I'm going to be the program director for the day. So we're actually having two events in one. We're having the Democracy at 30 celebration, and we're launching the Wentworth Social History book. And it's an historic occasion. Lots and lots of work has been put in today. So before we even get going with today and the proceedings, we're going to stand and just sing our national anthem.
Sounds the call to come together, and united we shall stand. Let us live and strive for freedom in South Africa, our land.
Thank you, everybody. We're hoping by the time you leave here today, you're going to be leaving here as a proud African who sees our country for more than just what's going on, but looking at the possibilities. And that's what we're going to be talking a lot about today. We're going to explore the possibilities. We're going to speak to this little thing called hope. And while the team was discussing, one of the videos that really touched us was a speech that Thabo Mbeki once made, and it's called I Am African. And we're going to play that video called I Am African because it speaks to being patriotic, it speaks to what exists in our land, and once again it speaks to the possibilities that exist.
I am an African. I owe my being to the hills and the valleys, the mountains and the glades, the rivers, the deserts, the trees, the flowers, the seas, and the ever-changing seasons that define the face of our native land. My body has frozen in our frosts and in our latter-day snows. It has thawed in the warmth of our sunshine and melted in the heat of the midday sun. The crack and the rumble of the summer thunders, lashed by startling lightning, have been a cause both of trembling and of hope. The fragrances of nature have been as pleasant to us as the sight of the wild blooms of the citizens of the veld. The dramatic shapes of the Drakensberg, the soil-colored waters of the Likwa, Iqili, Notugela, and the sands of the Kalahati have all been panels of the set on the natural stage on which we act out the foolish deeds of the theater of the day. At times, and in fear, I have wondered whether I should concede equal citizenship of our country to the leopard and the lion, the elephant and the springbok, the hyena, the black mamba, and the pestilential mosquito. A human presence among all of these, a feature on the face of our native land just defined, I know that none dare challenge me when I say I am an African.
I'm about to call up a few young people from our community that attend Austerville Secondary, Fairvale, and Wentworth High. Andrea? So let me just give you a small synopsis of who these young ladies are. One of the things that we were hoping to do, more so in this community, because sometimes we always have the conversation about the doom and the gloom that exist. We're always speaking about young people that are not making it, or not young people that don't have aspirations and dreams. At present moment, we have close to 100 young people in our community. Not all of them could make it today because some of them are at extra lessons. We've got more than 100 young people that are applying to the different universities around the country, more so in KZN. And I thought it was very, very important for us to look at these young people as not as a generation that is lost, but a generation that is striving and thriving to be more than what their present circumstances are. So these young ladies got a few things to say about who they are and what they're going to be.
Hello everybody, I'm Andrea Smith. I go to Wentworth Secondary School. I'm from the community of Wentworth. Wentworth is an amazing place, but limits you. There's about 100 of us, and even more, who think that education is key and want change. So next year, I'm going to be studying law because I want to be a lawyer.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Samir Richards, and next year I'll be studying nursing because I want to become a nurse.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Shazia Noats. I attend Wentworth Secondary, and I would like to study education to become a teacher.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Sharasa Kenam from Wentworth Secondary, and I want to study medicine because I want to be a radiologist.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Asia. I am from Fairvale Secondary School. When I grow up, I'd like to be a clinical technologist.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Talia. I'm from Austerville Secondary, and I would like to study human resource management.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Shardenay. I'm from Austerville Secondary School, and I would like to study law.
Hello, everybody. My name is Shaira Wilson, and I want to study information technology next year to become an IT forensics.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Yana Haynes. I go to Austerville Secondary School. Next year, I'll be studying IT to become a cybersecurity.
These are just 9 of the 100 that were able to come through today. And all of these young people have applied to the university, and many of them have received acceptance letters from the university. This right here is Wentworth. This right here in front of you is the future of Wentworth. This is the hope that we keep speaking about. And they cannot do it alone. So when we speak about democracy, when we start having that conversation about maybe things not working out, we've got young people saying, I want to do it, and I am going to do it, and I am going to make it, despite anything that might come my way. So please give it up for these young ladies and those that are not here in the space. Thank you, ladies. And they're totally unapologetic about it. They want it, so they will get it. And we need the community, we need the village to be able to support their endeavors. So moving along with the program, I'm going to call up Dr. Gregory Houston. He was a chief research specialist at the HSRC. Dr. Houston has been the heart and soul of both the Democracy at 30 project here in Wentworth and of the Wentworth Social History book. Everybody knows him as Doc. You'd hardly see Doc around because he's so busy in his office typing out all of these books and all of these journal articles and all of these papers. So he's going to give a brief introduction about what the Democracy at 30 project was about. Please, everybody, give him a big round of applause.
Thanks. Thank you, Darren. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Darren is telling lies. I've just learned what it means to be retired. I'm sick and tired of TV now. That's all I'm doing. I've learned what it is to be bored, Mr. Stevens. I had the privilege, though, of my last project for the HSRC of working in the community that I come from. It was the 5th project that we conducted in Wentworth. And to my knowledge, in the history of the HSRC, I don't know of anyone else who has worked in the community that they grew up in. I grew up just down the road here in Essega, next to Dennis Peterson's house, where Dennis presently stays. I schooled somewhere around here. I was running around getting beaten by the teachers somewhere here in Northgate School and in Essega School. And I come back to a community where I was able to do quite a bit of research. The last project was initiated by the current CEO of the HSRC. We're supposed to have somebody coming from there, but unfortunately the minister has distracted them from the current duties, and they seem to be under a bit of harassment there and required to do certain tasks for a presentation next week. So the senior leadership of the HSRC is not available. Therefore, I have to be here to deal with this. The project is run out in 10 different research sites across the country. And I had the privilege of looking at the results of 3 research sites. And as I go through some of the findings from the research in Wentworth, I want you to note, and this is important, what we experience in this community is the same that has been experienced in Langa, in Cape Town. It's the same that has been experienced in Vuwani, which is a rural area in Limpopo. They have the same problems. Some are more important here and some less important there. And others more important there and others less important here. So we conducted research and we interviewed 20 people. We had focus groups with 24 people and we had 59 people in workshops. I'm just going to give you a summary of the results. The objective was to find out what do we celebrate in this 30th anniversary of democracy. And most of the participants said there is nothing to celebrate or very little. And I think it speaks to where we are as a community. because people have forgotten so many things. The 10 people you saw here, when I went to university and Doggy sitting there, Glen Manning, we were probably as much as those 10 people in universities around the country from Wentworth. And those numbers, now the numbers of students from Wentworth is significantly higher than at that time. And that's just one of the many things that have changed since 1994. But we forgot about them because we can't even go, I can't wait to get out of Durban. Because people just don't do anything here. You're afraid to go anywhere. There's so many challenges that we face, and what this project did was to unearth the number of challenges that the community faces. And the most significant one that they identified is poor governance and corruption. Most people feel that everything else flows from there. All the other challenges the community faces flow from there. There are very few people feel that their lives have improved. Most of the people, I mean, it was about 99 people we had in this project. I think there were less than 5 who see that their lives have improved. Most people's lives have stayed the same or gotten worse. Crime emerges as the second significant problem. Safety and security, everybody. And we use material from the Wentworth History Project as well, in which people talk about the fear that they have, even in their own homes. So that is a priority issue. So we looked at people's experiences of democracy on a range of issues. Housing. No housing has been built in Wentworth since 1994. People often speak about 3-4 generations living in a flat. So that is another priority issue. The third aspect that we looked at was what needs to be addressed. So we had about 15 indicators that we looked at. Housing is one of them. Education is another. Although people said we have better access to education because you can go to white schools. In the one focus group, the one lady who said this, everybody else was saying, but we cannot afford to send our children to white schools. So even though there is increased access to education, the fact that people do not have jobs, the high rates of unemployment, affects this. The other key issue was access to health. We have a clinic right in the middle of Wentworth. We have Wentworth Hospital within walking distance. The most significant challenge for most people was, of course, the time spent there, and the overwhelming issue was the staff. Almost everybody complained about the treatment that they were given by the staff. The only 2 issues that Wentworth people see progress in is gender equality. There are more women working, but it comes with a negative aspect. There's a lot of men unemployed, and there's more gender-based violence. So this has dramatically increased in Wentworth. Coupled with the unemployment, and as one guy said, our women are now working with African men in senior positions, and they are marrying our women. So it's a bit of an anecdotal aspect to that issue. The other one was race relations. There was recognition that the older people are still stuck to their old prejudices. But there was a lot of confidence among most, even the older interviewees, that it is the young people who are seen beyond color. Most of the young people have friends who are African and whites and Indian. They have friends across the race line. But unfortunately, a predominant aspect of this is the way in which we refer to, and this is something I picked up throughout the different responses to different issues, is the way we refer to us and them. And them, in this case, is in particular Black Africans. And a primary concern is the marginalization of the colored community. In other words, we don't have housing because we are not African, Black African. We don't have jobs because we are not Black African. But when you go to a place like Vuyani, which is in Limpopo, and Langa, it is the same issue. Unemployment is about 60% there. Housing, they got a housing challenge which is unbelievable. They have informal settlements within the community. So the issues that I'm going to come to my basic conclusion and conclusion to this is that we need to reach across color lines and to identify what we have in common. Instead of saying I'm marginalized because I'm colored. Marginalization is basically affecting virtually every poor community in this country. It is poverty that is what makes what you have in common. There were many suggestions to solutions. I don't have the time to talk about them, but there were every problem that we have, every challenge that we have, there were many suggested solutions, and some of them are very important. Now, we've developed a book chapter, we've developed a journal article, and a monograph, which is a book. We were promised that the book would be out by March next year. And I think that book is much more important than the Wentworth History book, because it talks about our current challenges. And that is education, unemployment, poverty, all of this dealt with in great detail based on the words of people from the community. So I'm looking forward to that book. We were hoping that there would be a second phase of the project, but they retired me because they were paying me too much, I think. So the HSRC ran out of funds, and this is the only thing that we could use the money for. So the idea was to actually have more and more workshops, to workshop the ideas that were coming out in other research efforts that we had engaged in last year. Because when you're sitting with about 10 ideas about how to deal with crime, they come from 10 different people. Not every one of them is going to agree with them. So you need a process that we engage in which we discuss crime. How do we deal with crime as a community and reach consensus that these are the steps to take? And this is the authorities that need to be involved. This is how we go about doing it. So it's a process that we engage in, and I was hoping that we would do it, but it didn't happen. So I'm going to hand over, I didn't expect to speak so long, but I need to hand over to our keynote speaker, because I'm disappearing from Wentworth, and the keynote speaker is Jerome Schoonberg. I think Jerome is somebody that most of us know. Although he was born in Sydenham, Jerome came to Wentworth in the late 1980s. Jerome served, age. I lost my glasses. Thank you. Jerome came to Wentworth in the early 1980s. And his first job was the Wentworth Place of Safety, where he worked for a period of 2 years and engaged and conducted a number of major changes at the place of safety. In particular, to make changes to the way institutionalized children were referred to by the courts. So Jerome, this is not my glasses, sorry. It is. In 1986, Jerome was appointed as the regional organizing secretary for the Pausa Trade Union. In 1988, and I think this is the capacity that we know Jerome mostly for, he was appointed as the township manager for the Wentworth and Marion Ridge areas, during which time Wentworth participated in the largest urban renewal program in South Africa. So all the gullies that we grew up in were paved. I was somewhere in 1988, I was in the Transkei at the time. And when I came home, I suddenly saw roads where we used to crawl drunk through, well, basically dusty rains were now roads and beautiful places. Jerome is at the moment working closely with Lenny Anderson in a company called Mandletsu Group, which was appointed to build the Coxted prison. And Jerome includes this in his bio because Mandletsu was the first company to be given a contract under the democratic government's affirmative procurement policy. That is the first colored company in the country. So Jerome, and the reason why we selected Jerome as the keynote speaker is because he has a balanced view of our democracy. He has benefited. He has benefited from our democracy, and yet he also has an experience of all the challenges that we face. Jerome is involved in a number of initiatives, including with Des Dessar in the environmental justice movement. He's involved with Quinton Manso in CBCO. So he's aware of the challenges that Wentworth faces. So I'd like you to just give a hand for Jerome, please. Thank you.
Very warm greetings, Wentworth greetings to everybody. It is really heartwarming to be here with you today. And it also makes one feel very small, and you get dwarfed by the people of Wentworth. Driving in, we saw the soccer legends, people who we emulated and really almost idolized. They could almost walk on water with the skills that Wentworth produced. To look at the people from the religious sectors who have joined us here today, the people responsible for our faith and our spiritual well-being, it's really great. To look at the people from the education sector who are here today, who have contributed, it is awesome. To the people from the arts who made music, who made Wentworth vibrant. Being here with you today is an absolute privilege. And we hope that Wentworth will always remember you. It's wonderful to be here to celebrate a milestone in the Wentworth Social History project, which has culminated in the launch of a book that tells the story of Wentworth. Thank you for the amazing work that has been done by the Human Sciences Research Council, by the team led by Professor Heidi van Rooyen and Dr. Gregory Houston, and in no small measure by young Darian Smith and his team. Within the next few months, we look forward to welcoming Darian as a doctor and encourage him to continue with the great work he is doing in Wentworth, especially with the Community Fathers program. And we saw some of the young girls that were up here who are being mentored by the Community Fathers program. Thank you for that, Darian. And we understand that there are some negative views about the democracy that we now have, and we need to have the conversation about it. But one of the things that is most heartwarming are those children who were standing up here today. Some of the children who you're looking at are 2 years away from starting to pull you out of the quagmire. And proof of that, 3 weeks ago, 2 19-year-old first-year computer science students at the University of Stellenbosch uncovered massive fraud in the SASSA Social Relief Distress Grant, which has denied tens of thousands of people. So I think that's applause. Thank you. So they are here. We are not necessarily talking about the future. In its real context, they'll be here in another 2 years. The egregious error that we make as adults is what has been happening to these two children, two colored children from Cape Town, over the last 2 weeks. They took them to the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee to explain their findings. And how did we respond as adults? The leadership, the person representing the ANC, responded by saying, we don't commit fraud. We are not corrupt. They chose to go defensive instead of acknowledging the work and the research that had been done by these 19-year-olds and undertaking to support them to get to the bottom of the problem because it affects so many people. It is going to be us who are going to stifle and put down our very future if we are going to go on the defensive. So we need to acknowledge, firstly, that they are here. Secondly, that they will need our support. And we have to be the enablers. And we have to be the protectors. Because the second thing they did, they accused these two of hacking the system. How dare you? One of the things in the government of national unity that I really loved, and let's be practical, it's unlikely that it'll last, and yes, it's a grand coalition, but what it did was Gayton McKenzie stepped up and said, who is Mama Joy? How is it that we spend 1.5 million rand to get somebody, to fly somebody business class to a sporting event, live in 5-star luxury, while the athletes are holding Boerewors sale rolls on the street corners to get to the event? This is what's coming out. When the Minister of Public Works can say, guys, we've spent hundreds of millions of rand doing up the Telkom building and it's never been occupied. The state owns 88,000 buildings, but we spend 6-point-some odd billion on rental. Bring it closer to you here at home. The Department of Labor, where will you find them? In the Royal Hotel. The Department of Human Settlements. We see the Esplanade Government Building in total ruin. We see the Malgate Building. Where the Department of Education was, we see the Trudeau Building in total ruin. You find them renting offices in Eagle Building. What are they doing? So you can understand when people get bleak, but we must not let it overwhelm us. We must be positive about where we are as a nation. What our South Africa looks like now for our youth after 30 years of democracy at a macro level, and then we bring in our focus to Wentworth and we say, what does it look like for them now? And hopefully what will come out of the address is what should it look like for our youth in 30 years' time at a macro level around the country, and what should it look like for the youth of Wentworth. And I think this is where our history becomes so important, that we know where we come from. In the context of South Africa, we boast one of the most advanced constitutions in the world. It is a country where all citizens are afforded equal opportunities under the law. Even our efforts to redress the disparities of the past cannot conflict with the rights afforded to our citizens enshrined in our Constitution. A current example of this is the huge outcry that's been happening globally around the International Rugby Board's decision to host the 2026 World Nations Championship in Qatar. Due to one thing, to their abysmal human rights. The most recent Freedom in the World survey shows an alarming disparity between a rich, well-established country like Qatar and a developing economy like South Africa. During the survey, Qatar scored 25 points out of 100, a score made up of 7 out of 40 for political rights and 18 points out of 60 for civil liberties. Now, when you compare the score to South Africa, we score 88 out of 100. Is this not something to celebrate in our democracy? So what should our community here in Wentworth be celebrating? I was touched when I saw Mr. and Mrs. Seidel walking in this morning. Because some of us don't know. We celebrate Tyler and we applaud Tyler. But Tyler, part of her lineage and her roots are here from Wentworth. Her grandfather, the Seidel family. Did we know that? And do we celebrate it? Do we support it? Our youth, under people like Tyler, have mastered Afro beats and put it on the global stage like it's never been seen before. Our youth have been the only people in the world to introduce a new genre of music which is taken off in the world and is called amapiano. Should we not be celebrating this? Annie Smith, an internationally acclaimed musician, and hopefully some of the girls are listening who were up here just now. Dr. Caitlin Johnson, who is the first colored woman to graduate from UKZN with a PhD in civil engineering. Brought up in a single mother household whose mother was terminally ill. And this is what this wonderful, wonderful woman achieved. Justice Leona Theron, Constitutional Court judge from Wentworth. Fred Peterson, who was the head of economic development in our new democracy. Dominic Duplessis from Engelbrecht Road was the head of the KZN Growth Fund. William Goldstone, down from Austerville Drive, who was the head of KZN On Source. Michael Finn from Giranta Road, who was the director of Genrec and the director of Southern Palace, which is the largest construction company in the country and the sponsor of the Springboks. Sitting with us today, Eric Applegren, the head of international relations from Wentworth. And people will still be negative. You know, in 2019, a very sad story for us as Manjiretu, we were appointed to carry out the rehabilitation of the Southern Wastewater Treatment Works. The project required repairs to the 50-year-old 22 million litre concrete tanks. The concrete in these tanks had degenerated to such an extent over the 50-year period that it became a serious problem. No project of this nature or magnitude had ever been undertaken in the country before. Our focus was on local employment within Ward 68, and our target group were the matriculants who could not find employment and who did not have the benefit of a tertiary education. We recruited 15 females and 15 males. The youth were trained in every aspect of concrete rehabilitation. And one objective, to equip them with an accreditation within this highly specialized field. The initiative was almost stalled when one of the leaders from this community, from a business forum in Wentworth, took it upon himself to hijack the process for his own personal gain. Shortly after establishing the project, we were visited by this leader and a horde of armed taxi mobsters who demanded that the site be shut down and that they be given their 30%. We wanted no part of this and were preparing to leave the project when the city, together with another business forum, and the gentleman just walked in, please don't follow my eyes, they intervened. And they told them, this is not going to happen in Wentworth. These are our children. And these children had worked for 3 years. And they walked out of there with a qualification. Some of them walked into jobs. But the sad part for us, the part that really broke us, was that within 1 year, 8 of the males who we had trained were killed in gang-related violence here in Wentworth. And it left us asking the question, was there anything more that we could have done to save these kids, to keep them off the streets? And that is the challenge that needs to be shared with every person, so that this kind of thing never happens again. In 2011, our community developed a model for people and businesses from this community to participate in the refurbishment of the flats. Without going into too much detail, the model would see a target spend of 40% on local employment, construction companies, and suppliers. With a total project value of 126 million, the 40% would realize a spend of 47 million rand for the benefit of the Wentworth community. Sadly, because of our fragmentation and the absence of unity, this did not happen. Given this background, is it right for us to be so negative about our democracy? Have we, as a community, not allowed our democracy to be extorted from us by a few individuals to the detriment of Wentworth? 3 months ago, our provincial police commissioner, Mkwanazi, addressing the crime summit here in Durban, released some startling statistics. And you heard what came out of the research when Doc presented. Crime is our #1 fear, safety and security. 40% of crimes committed within KZN are committed in and around Durban. over a 5-year period, 60,000 criminals were arrested. And here's the shocker. The 60,000 criminals were between the ages of 16 and 25. Of the 60,000 criminals that were arrested, 57,691 of the criminals were black males. He attributes this, and this is what we need to grab onto. Firstly, to the large number of informal settlements, the state of housing, the large number of liquor outlets, the high rate of unemployment, and the high school dropout rate. So surely we can use these variables to develop programs that can build our youth and remove these statistics. What excites me about our youth? Our country has demonstrated time and time again that we have the unparalleled ability to leapfrog technology and to invent some amazing technological solutions, making South Africa a world leader in many fields. One of the companies within our group, just down the road, is run by 2 youngsters who are not 33 yet. These 2 youngsters, born and bred here in Wentworth, have begun rolling out international fiber gateways along the east coast of Africa. And you will recall, Google has now completed connecting the West African coast, but has neglected the East African coast because it is not so commercially viable. This cable is going to travel for a distance of 14,000 kilometers undersea, and it will connect Africa to Asia. 2 of the landing stations have already been completed in Amamzantoti. Now, if, as an adult, you ask me, what future do our youth have in the new democracy? Then perhaps it is time for you to step aside in order to make way for our youth. Alternatively, it is time for us to develop a positive outlook by putting our personal egos aside and uniting around a common objective, which is to become enablers and protectors of our youth. Let them shine in a free and democratic South Africa. Yes, as adults we have suffered many hardships. We bear lots of scars. But must we pass these hardships and these scars onto our future generations? Or do we adopt the position that we will build upon the legacy left to us by the freedom fighters of Wentworth? Did you know that based on the incarcerations on Robben Island, of all the people in prison on Robben Island, and please understand this statistic, Wentworth contributed more people to our fight for democracy than any other township in South Africa. Wentworth. Did you know that the youngest person on Robben Island to be imprisoned on Robben Island, fighting for the democracy we enjoy now, was Kevin Curtis from Reicherau? why do we not acknowledge our heroes? Why? Why do we not acknowledge the contribution that the youth of Wentworth have made towards the freedom that we enjoy today? Why is it that we have failed to publicly demonstrate the acknowledgement of our heroes? We have streets named after flowers and colonially owned disease-infested ships, but not one road is named after the people who fought for our democracy. Neither is there a single venue or space within Wentworth where our youth can learn about our history and our heroes. Is it not time for us to come together and unite around the common objective that will give us no personal financial reward, but which will restore our dignity and give our youth a sense of pride, enabling them to claim their space in the sun? If we are to create a brighter future for Wentworth over the next 30 years, then let it begin with us. It's in our hands. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Uncle Jerome. At the end of the program today, we're going to give you a paper and a pen. We're going to test you on everything Uncle Jerome said. So what we're going to do now, we're going to call our beautiful children from Durban East and their choir master, Mrs. Q, who are going to come and do a musical performance for us. Please give them a round of applause as they make their way to the front. another big round of applause. Thank you so much, Lebanese, and this is Q. Thank you so much. We're gonna now call on. I'm just thinking of the music festivals that they used to have at City Hall. I'm not sure if they do that anymore, but imagine what that looks like with all of these hundreds of schools that would come together and display their talents, their music, their art, their drama. And the thing is, if we all sit back and wait for somebody to do that for us, I think we'll keep waiting. But I think it's about time, and this is what the Democracy at 30 Projects was trying to promote: active citizenry, active participation, where we take agency, where we take responsibility, and how we can engage more collaboratively together, how we can do things together instead of waiting for somebody to do something for us. I'm about to call on Dance Academy. Dance Academy, are you here? Or they're hiding behind the curtain? Jared's crew? Oh, they're here. I don't know how much you know about Dance Academy, but they're one of the dance schools that exist in Wentworth. They've been around for such a long time, and they've been doing the most amazing work, and they've got the most amazing artists, dancers that really do the most. Please give it up for Dance Academy, everybody.
Inside my thoughts, spend my time at home, I need to get away. Be free, find it hard to smile, nothing's making sense. All the things I lost, I miss you by my side. Cause I wanna be free from these chains that are fighting me. I wanna be free from these chains that are fighting me. I wanna be free from these chains that are hurting me.
Because you and them Chibobo. Peace.
Let's go, Wentworth.
Now that love's taking over, I'm 100% sure that it's here to stay. I ain't got no issues standing in my way, and I ain't going nowhere. You ain't going nowhere. My
war again. We've met the night, got my dancing shoes on, baby, let's get down. Patch your weave, girl, boy, do bring the swag. Everyone gon' bring you to the magic jam, get down. Patch your weave, girl, boy, do bring the swag. Everyone gon' bring you to the magic jam, get down. Tag a friend you need who'll be at. Everyone be smiling and singing, get down.
Thank you so much, Dance Movement. Jared and his team practice, I think, nearly every single day at Transhaven. They not just got, these are the senior dancers, they've also got junior dancers. So again, tell me, there's nothing happening in Wentworth. Give them another big round of applause, everybody. I'm going to now call on Marie, who's going to introduce our next performance.
Good morning, everyone. Well, one thing we can say from Wentworth is having Mr. Mackenzie as sports and culture is very important for our community. As we can see, sports and culture plays a pivotal role in who we are as people, especially us from Wentworth, and we can see it with our youngsters. Which actually brings me to, with regard to the democracy and the history, it's also about generational growing and not only doing for myself, but for my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. And our next artist today actually makes us so proud as a community as well, because she is actually the granddaughter of a principal. How many years again, Auntie Ethne? 45 years as an educator and a principal at Austerville Primary School. So this is from us here in the community. And her name is Shardenay. And if you don't know who Shardenay is the granddaughter of Mrs. Ogle, as I've mentioned, who also happens to have been an ex-neighbor of mine. But Shardenay is an 18-year-old artist with a couple of singles out. And also attributed to that is she is the first head girl of color at Kloof Secondary School. And we know that these kinds of schools were so difficult for us to get in a couple of years ago, we'll just say. And she is the first head girl of the school. So well done, just on that part. She's also in the middle of matric exams. What you writing on Monday? Physics paper 2 on Monday. So we don't want to keep her too long, but thank you so much for your efforts and putting us out there as well, Shardenay. Shardenay released her first single at the age of 13 years old. And this was with an American producer, Harrison Crump. She's the eldest of 4 siblings. Her mum is also from Wentworth. She is a worship leader at St. Agnes Church, Anglican Church. And her roots are set in Wentworth, but she's living in Pinetown at the moment. And we are very proud of her, and she's got some beautiful songs that she'll be sharing with us this evening. I promise you, it will give you goosebumps. So well done. Thank you, Shardenay.
Thank you so much, Auntie Marie. I just want to start off by saying it's an honor to be here, seeing all the history of home and stuff like that. So I'm just really appreciative of this opportunity. So thank you, Auntie Marie, for reaching out, and I really hope you guys enjoy. The first song I'm going to sing is Andrew Day, Rise Up. Broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round. You can find the fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, and I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. I'll rise up, high like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, oh, for you. When the silence isn't quiet and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet. Move mountains, bring it to its feet. Move mountains, and I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, it's all for you. It's all for you. All we need is home, and for that we have each other, and for that we have each other. All we need is home, and for that we have each other, and for that we have each other. I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. I'll rise up, high like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times, time and time again. Oh, Thank you. The next one is called The Journey by her. So again, I really hope that you enjoy. All the times you thought you'd never make it through, felt just like the world just turned its back on you. Didn't stop you. All the times you could have given in and given up, times you didn't know if you were strong enough. Still you got through. Somehow it's all part of the plan, the journey. The journey. It's the journey. It's the getting there to where you're going to. Go through hell, but still you're gonna make it through. It's the fire. All the times you thought that they could hold you back, but you've always known there was no chance of that. You're made too strong. When you're going with your heart, you can go farther than you'd ever thought possible. Prove them all wrong. It's all part of a bigger plan. The journey. The journey. Oh, it's the journey. It's the getting there to where you're going to. Go through hell, but still you're gonna make it through. It's the fire that they can't put out inside. It's all over right. Every step you take is one more step along the way on the journey. The journey. The journey. Oh, it's the journey. It's the getting there to where you're going to. You go through hell, but still you're gonna make it through. It's the fire that they can't put out inside. It's all over right. It's the journey. It's the getting there to where you're going to. Go through hell, but still you're gonna make it through. It's the fire that they can't put out inside. It's all over right. It's the journey. Oh, yeah. It's the journey. Thank you so much. I just want to end my little session off with a worship song, and it speaks very dear to my heart. It's about speaking Jesus over your life and just letting him be the main character, the main factor, because the truth is when God is in control, then everything's going to be okay and everything will be fine. So, yes, we're going to speak the name of Jesus. I just want to speak the name of Jesus over every heart and every mind. 'Cause I know there is peace within your presence. I speak Jesus. I just want to speak the name of Jesus. So every dark addiction starts to break, declaring there is hope and there is freedom. I speak Jesus. 'Cause your name is power, your name is healing, your name is alive. Break every stronghold, shine through the shadows, burn like a fire. I just want to speak the name of Jesus over fear and all anxiety. To every soul held captive by depression, I speak Jesus. 'Cause your name is power, your name is healing, your name is alive. Break every stronghold, shine through the shadows, burn like a fire. 'Cause your name is power, your name is healing, your name is alive. Break every stronghold, shine through the shadows, burn like a fire. Shout Jesus from the mountains, Jesus in the streets, Jesus in the darkness over every enemy. Jesus for my family, I speak the holy name, Jesus. Shout Jesus from the mountains, Jesus in the streets, Jesus in the darkness over every enemy. Jesus for my family, I speak the holy name of Jesus.
Wow, wow, wow. Mom, come here. Come here, Mom. Please give Mom a round of applause. Well done, Shardenay. In a matter of about 20 minutes, we've already showed you a lot of what our young people are capable of doing. There's two acknowledgements that I'd like to make today as well. For many who don't know, Wentworth has its own local radio station called Happy Valley. And Happy Valley comprises of a lot of young DJs and talk show hosts. And in the back table, we have Caleb, we have Morgan, we have Brian. Young people that could be anywhere else in the world, but they're here today. And over the course of today, they're also going to be calling you up to do little interviews on the top there and ask you the questions that they want to ask you. And the second thing I want to acknowledge is everybody knows Doc, Greg Houston. And Doc has been in the research academic world for a very long time. But Doc took a group of young people, myself, Marie, Teresa, and quite a few other young people, and have been mentoring us, guiding us in terms of the academic world. I'm also sitting here and I'm looking at another professor sitting by the fourth table, and I know he doesn't like the limelight. Professor Darren Lawton, who's also in a way taken me, I forced my way, under his wing. We've got so many accomplished individuals in our communities that are saying we want to grab our young people to teach them, to show them and guide the way. What we're going to do right now, we kind of changed the program around because we wanted to be a little bit more of an interactive discussion instead of a panel discussion. We really just want to know from you, and we're going to put you on the spot. So I've got Marie and I've got Teresa and I've got Busi, who are going to have cordless mics, and we want to bring you into the conversation about democracy. We want to hear what you've got to say and what your experiences have been in terms of the 30 years of this democracy. And I'm standing here and I just see one of my mothers walk in, Mrs. Bessia. Welcome, Mrs. Bessia. So if Kawi, Marie, Teresa, Busi. Okay. Stay, can you help me? So we just want to know from you, is there another mic? No, that's fine. So we just want to know from you, because over the past year, we've been running focus groups within the community. We've been running groups with many individuals, and we also ran workshops to find out what were people's experiences of democracy at 30. What were some of the good, the bad, and the ugly? Now we want to know from you, what were some of those experiences? And the very first question that I'm going to ask you, and I'll start maybe on a positive note. What were the main achievements since '94 that you think that we as a country should celebrate in the 30 years of democracy? So basically I'm asking you, in these 30 years, what is it that you think we should or can celebrate? So anybody, because I can nicely volunteer you too. I see Kanya wants to say something. Oh, okay. Mr. Ellen Holmes.
Okay.
Sorry, just before you start, our airtime is limited. So as a belief, because I know my brother here, he's also a community forward. It's a 30-minute thing. This.
Okay.
So it's a 1 minute, and we only speak into what we're going to celebrate Okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
what we celebrate is the GMU, first of all. The GMU consists of our own party. When I say our own party, it means a brain party. PA Gayton Mackenzie as a brain party. So we're celebrating that we got a braino, Jack Purcell's hit Parliament. Thank you.
Okay, so we've got Jack Purcell's in Parliament, everybody. Kanya? I'm forcefully... No. Okay, Marie's volunteering. Yeah?
Sheesh. Forgive me, but one of the first things that came to mind is I now live in a country in which I support rugby. That's a transition for me.
Yeah.
Over the years, I've thought about the highlights, and the highlights have been watching that ball drop behind the goals in 1995, watching the transition in that sport, while simultaneously lamenting that the sport of my dreams doesn't seem to be going anywhere. I won't mention it, but
You're
it's
talking about Bafana.
Soccer. Sorry, that's the first thing that comes to mind. It would be remiss of me not to add that so many of us, and by us I mean us, have greater access to things that we didn't have before. For me, the most important is high quality education. I have access to that. My children have access to that. But sadly, so many of our fellow countrymen and women don't. Still, 30 years later.
Access to education. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not quite 30, so I don't know what was happening 30 years ago. But if I can speak for my generation, I think, and on social media, and a transition that I can see, is unity, but in a sibling way. This whole thing of we can fight, but don't fight us. We can fight amongst ourselves, but if another country comes for South African, there's a specific kind of unity that I've seen that obviously we've got a history of segregation and fighting amongst ourselves. But now this whole thing of like, if you're coming for Tyler, everyone is coming for you. And if you're coming for whoever, everyone, if you're coming for Trevor Noah, everyone is coming for you. Don't worry about what our politics, don't worry about who we voted for. We're coming for you. We'll fight later, but we're coming for you. So just, that unity against the world, not against, but yeah.
Thank you. Rochelle? Stay, Rochelle, put your hand up. You know why sorry, Kaz, before you go on, the reason why I'm also volunteering people is because on Facebook, when somebody puts something there, there's 3,000 comments. It's easy for us to talk behind the screen, but when it's time to tell what we cry in front of everybody, it becomes a little bit of a challenge. But I know my cousin always speaks. Love.
Good morning, everyone. My experience of 30 years democracy is what we are celebrating right now. Is because when we were young in the struggle, and now I see the results, and that is why in many aspects of democracy, we see it. Some of us may not feel it, but democracy is what we are doing right now. It's also bringing us together of different race groups, because we are one. As we all say, it's Ubuntu. So my democracy is that we're experiencing the change that we did not have back in the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Auntie Monica? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Deacon?
I think it's a well-known fact that one of the things that we are celebrating is our God-given gift. And that is the gift to be able to choose, freedom of choice. And I think that is something that we've taken for granted and that we sometimes it falls into entitlement. But I think the fact that we have the choices are wide. And I was just thinking that all of us, whether we colored, black, Indian, we can all go and swim in the Indian Ocean. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Deacon.
Well, good morning. Good morning. My name is Llewellyn Busby. Does I stand up? Okay. I'm from Heidedal. You know what's Heidedal? Bloemfontein. Somebody was talking about a PA. I know the minister. So we used to grow up, he and my brother. But the thing that connects me to Wentworth, you might be wondering why I'm here. 30 years ago, I voted here for the first time in my life as a colored. I was in the military, in the South African Air Force. I served here, and there's another thing that brought me back 30 years later. I brought out my book with editor Professor Gregory Houston, and we made history together again. You know, there's so much history to make. You know, as a military member in the former apartheid South African Defense Force, it was difficult with the transition, but I've done it. We have done it together. History are being made. My book is out, and it's a remarkable story. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Auntie Lorraine. Sorry, Auntie Monica. Auntie Monica got it, and then we give Auntie Lorraine next. You can go, Auntie Monica.
Well, I would say what we've really achieved, coming from my time and my age, it's the color line with the children. I loved seeing the mixture of the children playing together, because I, for one, never had that chance. Those that come from our regime will know what I'm talking about. So what I'm saying, that is definitely that I know. I get happy that I see the mixtures of children playing together. They've got no way of saying, ni blanca, net blanca ni. They don't know that they can enter anywhere. So children, enjoy that freedom, because we never had it.
Thanks,
Okay,
Auntie
sorry.
Mats.
The mic is actually for Irene.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Irene Finn. The thing that I believe that we should be celebrating is that if you think of the past in the post-democratic period, is that South Africa was a black and white country. And now when we're in our democracy, we are able to celebrate the in-between, the gray area, and we are the gray area. And so for me, that is a huge, huge celebration, because we're having colored brothers standing up and now taking their place. We are able to teach our children that they can celebrate being colored, and it's not a disadvantage as we have been previously taught. So for me, this era and this influx of color is a huge, huge celebration, and we need to harness it and celebrate it in unity and not in division. Thank you.
Thank you. Dion.
Good afternoon. All protocol observed to all our doctors and professors in the house and our elders. It is such a blessing to see that the Human Science Research Council is in our community. And I just heard a lady's conversation about being proud as colored people. And it is time for us to grab onto our heritage and our identity as Aboriginal and Indigenous people. If you look at the anthropologists' reports of how we ended up being colored people, the mixed bloodlines, we're sitting with German surnames, Russian surnames, Dutch surnames, all the settlers that came here and planted their seeds, and we are descendants of those people that came here and left their seed in Aboriginal people. So these conversations need to be illuminated. We need more dialogue in terms of who we are and how did we become a colored nation. And thank you, Darren, for bringing such learned people together to have dialogue on those topics.
Thank you. Just one more comment before we move on to the next question. Sorry, Uncle Andre. Oh, Uncle Andre. Yes, dear.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I've got a different view on our democracy.
Achievements, celebrations.
I've got a different view on our democracy is that the reason being is that we heard what Darian, a speaker before, what's her name said, Robben Island had more colors from Wentworth in it. The democracy that we're having today is cosmetic, and I'm unapologetic to it. In 1982, when I went to UK, then that time it was called. But anyway, I was turned down. It's because in 1976, there's one Patsa City in there. I was one of the instrumental leaders of the school boycott in 1976, and I was turned down at Howard College. So the democracy that we see here today, that we are getting a false democracy. Our children are still stunted at UKZN. NSFAS is still prejudiced towards us. The corporate world is still prejudiced towards us.
Uncle Andre, that's the next question.
So that's why, okay, sorry. That's why I didn't want to stand up, because I see a different version of democracy. It's because I come from the era that half of you all did not fight with. There's some of them that stood with us and fought with us, and what we get here now, instead of us getting the bakery, we're only getting a tray of bread.
Thanks. And we'll end this question with Ste, one of our young people in the community that's also a radio show host and also part of the political conversations that are taking place within the community.
Hello everyone, Sanbonan. I think in the 30 years of democracy, we can celebrate the fact that any one of us sitting in this room can be elected. If you want to run for office, you have the privilege to run. There is nothing preventing you. Before that was not able, that was not possible. Only the white people were able. Now young people, old people, regardless of your sex, gender, you are able to run for elections and represent the people of your community. But also the other thing we must celebrate of this democracy also is that we are free, freedom of speech. You know, in other African countries, you can't give your president a nickname, like how we have Cupcake. If you give your president a nickname, you'll be jailed for over 6 months. So the privileges we enjoy of just saying anything we want to say about our president, about our leaders that represent us, is really something we must celebrate. But we have a long way to go.
Thank you. Now, this is the second question that I'm going to ask, which Andre de Bruin already started to answer. What are some of the challenges that we're experiencing right now? If you already spoke, you can't have another turn, Ellen. What are some of the challenges that we're experiencing right now that need to be addressed so that our lives can be improved? I'll come back to you, Alan, in a minute. Thanks, brother. Thanks, Mark.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Remember the 1 minute, 30 second time frame?
Okay. The challenges that we are facing in this community is poverty. And for people to restrict you from making your hustle, that needs to stop.
Thank you. Roxanne?
To add what Mark was saying about the challenges, well, with me personally, I've been through what is also the drugs, the violence, and that is very prevalent in our communities and surrounding areas. And I think that as a community, we need to stand together and be more active in terms of trying to eliminate these problems that are so rife today and that is destroying our youth. And our youth are tomorrow, so we need to be more active in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Drugs. Auntie Lorraine.
As it's all good morning. Good morning, everybody. My name is Lorraine Ogle Davies. I'm a life coach. My comment on the question is enviousness with leaders. When a leader actually identifies another leader who is actually bending backwards to empower the masses, comes along and bites you, puts a knife in your back with a smile on their faces, that for me is a challenge. And I think we need to have these conversations. We don't come to empower the masses because we want a tap on our shoulders. We come because there's a need. You know, it's so sad, me coming back to this community and seeing and trying to address the injustices, the social ills. We have a myriad of organizations in this community, but why are the social ills escalating instead of decreasing? It's just day in, day out. Social ills, and there's a missing middle. So we need to have that conversation. We need to have workshops around it. Unity comes in strength.
Thank you. I just want to make a quick, I see you in the back. I just want to say something very quickly. Wentworth has more than 100 organizations in existence. We have more than 100 churches. We have every resource possible to man in this community. And what we struggle and what we find ourselves challenged with is that we're unable to have a balance with this power dynamics. We all want to be chiefs. We all want to be leaders. And one of the things, because I'm speaking to a challenger, so just allow me to preach for a second because I got the mic, okay? We've got that bucket in the crab syndrome. You know, Doc and I were having a conversation, and he said the more you learn, the more you figure out that you don't know. And if we start having that capability or that ability to start learning, we'll stop thinking that we know it all. Because everybody sitting in the space has something to teach somebody else. And when we start learning from one another, we are able to then humble ourselves and jump off our high horses and pointing at people and saying, you're not doing this and you're not doing that. You get up and start doing something yourself. Start making things happen.
Amen.
I am a board director for a trauma room. We see 600 new cases of abuse a month in this very community. And then we've got leaders standing up on the stage fighting about who wants to be chairperson and chairman and director and manager. Wentworth, get your act together. Get your act together, man. Start figuring it out and start. You know what, the young people, we've got Stay, we've got Dylan, we've got so many young people, but you know what, they don't want to step to the fore. You know why they don't want to come up, and you know why they don't want to be part of leadership things? Because they get pushed out, because they get told they know nothing. When we start opening up spaces for young people in this community, maybe the old can learn from the new. And maybe the new will start being able to listen to what the old has to say. Remember that age does not make you wise. And education does not make you wise. We've all got something to learn from one another. Sorry, man.
Thank you, Darian.
Yeah. Ellen, sorry, that was a challenge we're facing as young people in this community. Anybody else? Sorry, more? Sorry. Never see you.
Good morning, Wentworth people. Isn't it in democracy? I would like to speak in Zulu, so
No problem.
interpret for me. Ngibingelela abaphathi bohlelo, ngibingelele iWentworth iyonkana, ngibingelele odokotela kanye nabafundisi abaphakathi kwethu nazo zonke icubuthwane kanye nabasakazi bethu beWentworth
okhulumayo lapha mngweni uThandi wakamemela ngihlala ku Beggars Road. Mina nginesicelo ku government wethu we democracy ukuba avule amathuba emsebenzi for youth yethu ngoba isikhathi esiningi izinto ezenzakalayo njengama drugs ukudubulana esibhekene nakho la eWentworth kungenxa yokuthi abaningi babo abakwenzayo bakwenza through ekuthinini imisebenzi ayikho bafundile banazo zonke izicucu but imisebenzi abayitholi bese kuzoba ile nkinga ye age ekuthinini umekuqasha kuzoqasha from 18 to 35 naloko futhi siyacela ugovernment ukuthi asisize kona ngiyabonga. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other Mr. Deacon Pastor, Parker?
No, I've been listening to all the talks. But also important in Wentworth is that, yes, there are too many leaders, there are too many solidarities. Everybody wants to be in the front. But how many people want to be servants, to serve the people, to serve the community, and to help others in the community? How many of us want to do that instead of wanting to be in the front? We also look at people, they complain about children on drugs, children doing this, children doing that. How many understand the children and try to bring a healing to them instead of complaining and bringing them down? They are crying out for a healing. They are crying out to God for help. Are we there trying to help them, or are we trying to be bosses over them?
Thank you. Thank you. Ellen?
30 seconds.
Okay, we're the richest community, yet we're the poorest. We got Island View, Engine, Monday, and separate on one wing. Then we on the other wing, we got Jacobs. Okay. Then we got Jacobs on the other wing. But we got 90% unemployment. Another thing, we got over 100 churches in our community, but our community is the most filthiest, it's the most corrupt, it's the most violent community. It's not, something's not adding up when we come to think. We say we're serving the Lord, really. God is a God of order. Okay, that's one side. The next thing, I wear a lot of caps, so I'm going to speak, but the main one I want to speak on is this one. We got forced removed in a new South Africa. In 2010, my first time seeing a cell, I was against the forced removal. They locked me up. They shot rubber bullets in the crowd. My wife was in the crowd with my first child pregnant. We moved to the new barracks. From a house to a flat is not improvement. From yards to no yards is not improvement. From parks to no parks. But anyway, we're in the new barracks. Walls are cracking, floors are cracking, mildew, people are getting sick. There's 64 people died. Guys, Wentworth's been sleeping. Let me say something. We've been sleeping and we've been acting like we're leaders. There's no leaders in our community because everything is just going wrong and wrong. We need to come together. Guys, why I'm saying this here? I'm interdicted twice by Engine. And I'm interdicted by Austerville. I'm in High Court. Why I'm saying this here? We're fighting for employment for our people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Ellen. And that's a serious issue that if something happens in one area of the community, the rest of the community doesn't really pay attention until it happens to your side of the community. And the final question we'd like to ask you, and we just have 3 more comments because Mr. Glen Manning is sitting there patiently in the wings, ready to say his piece. So what solutions What solutions do you suggest or steps that should be taken to address some of these priority challenges that we're facing right now? What are some of the things that you can just think of on the top of your head? Of course, we're just really discussing it out aloud. But what we're also aiming to do is just to plant the seed so that when you go back to your entities, this conversation continues, this dialogue continues, and maybe, just maybe, something can emerge from the spaces that you are occupying. So what are some of the solutions you would suggest? Thanks, Mr. Haig.
I think as a community, we need to also take responsibility for the children we're sending to the school in the first place. The Bill of Rights has created a new dimension for us, and it's created a challenge for us to deal with discipline before we can deal with education. And that's one of the things that is holding us back in taking the children to the levels that they need to go to. And I think we need to reel in our learners and our children, teach them simple things like respect, manners, and their boundaries. So when they enter the school, we already have something to work with, because our learners come into the school from different communities and they're facing serious challenges. They don't know how to deal with conflict, they don't know their boundaries, and that is robbing and stealing us of lots and lots of educational time in terms of curriculum, and that's one of the challenges we're dealing with. The law is on their side. It's not on the educator side and the disciplinary side. So we really need the support of our parents in order to do our job effectively. And I think if we can get some of the basics correct, we should be on a journey to recovery. So thank you, parents.
Thank you so much, Mr. Haig. Mrs. Spear. Oh, more. Sorry.
Sorry. I don't think I need a mic.
Use the mic.
because I've
Use
been
the mic.
talking. I made a promise to my children that I mustn't talk long. You know, I was born in the Second World War. I'm going to be brief. I've listened to many of you talking, even though I came in late. And everything that everybody has said, I found to be true and wanting. But mostly, I feel, over the years, we must examine each and every one of ourselves in our own hearts. I always say, well, I haven't been active since 2019, but I listen, I've got on Facebook, I listen to Radio Happy Valley, I interact with people. I'm very reluctant to be in front of the stage in front of people. But I boil it down. I've been on many organizations, and each and every one of us, I found the lady there talking about stabbing in the back. I found the gentleman talking about educating our children and so on. This is wanting throughout each and every one of us from our hearts. Too many of us say something, in front of people we do something, behind their backs and perhaps with our families we do another thing and say another thing. And the most important thing, every night I think, I can't sleep at night, I suffer with this because of all my years in the community. But I think to myself, why is it? Why does this happen? It happens because we have a lot of churches. We have many churches, and I admire each and every one of them. Every one of them. I'm interested in every one of their chats on TV and on Facebook, and I say something about it. I always have something to say. But if you instill this in all your congregations' hearts, don't say something here and go outside and do something else. If all the churches came together and just put this one fact in every single person's heart, we would come right. Because it shows in our children, we go in church and we pretend to be, as a principal, I tell you, there's many parents that pretend to be everything. But when you deal with their children as your children, they are going through trauma. That is why they have the problems that they have. Here is one grandmother that I taught many, many years ago. I don't miss her remarks on TV. and I know the life she lived. I know exactly what she's talking about. I know the journey she's been through. Many grandfathers here and grandmothers I have taught. But you're going through the same thing over and over again. Not only with politics as well. Read more, people. Learn more about the background of everything that you hear, the background that you're in. I don't see why now Wayne Peterson, as leader of the Khoisan, must deal with the problem that we're all having. We should have been recognized long ago. We're not going into that now. But the thing is, if each and everyone examined our own consciences, our own hearts, things would be right. Do not go out of this wall. Say one thing and then you're discriminating outside, even with your family, your own family. You call others something else. You're not willing to help. You have no idea what has happened to me through being in this community. I don't even tell my family. Your eyes will boggle. You will wish that I never even came here, but I have never given up. But I recognize everything that everybody is saying, and it's all true, all true. But each and every one of us must examine our hearts, do what we can, don't give up, and be true to ourselves first of all. First of all, be true to ourselves. And I'm so glad to see people that came as youngsters when I started attending meetings, and they're standing up and forcefully talking. That gentleman, I always recognized his face as a youngster. I always recognize people. And same Monica, her children, my children knew her name before they even knew who she was. I had 3 little girls almost born together, and they were pretty little girls. Everybody used to say, oh, what beautiful children you got. They knew when they were coming home, Monica's name was being mentioned. I never ever told her that, because she was a pupil in my class, and she was always discriminated against. And I said, your heart is what counts. Your heart is what counts. If you had the heart of one of my pupils in the school, you would become pretty as you're supposed to be. But as I said, I know my children from all over are saying, keep quiet, your time is up. I'm sorry, but I always say to the leaders that if you want to know anything from me, I'm unable to drive now to come all over. Come and talk to me. I can tell you everything. I can tell you many things, but I'm tired now, I'm old, but you can come and talk to me for advice. And I'm very honest, and I'm a very deep thinker, a very deep reader, and so on. But thank you, everybody, and welcome, everybody. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you. Marvin, you just have Marvin and one more here, and then one more there, and then we're gonna go to, we're almost done. I know that everybody's hungry. We've been sitting for a long time. Thanks, Marvin.
Good morning, everybody. Sanibonani, Goeiemorgen, Amashe, Awe. My name is Marvin Roll. Something that I have noticed in not just our community, but not just South Africa at whole, but the world, we are a traumatized people, we are a damaged people, we are a broken people. Many of us are angry, we are frustrated, we are burdened with so many things on a daily basis from the time we wake up in the morning. We come from homes with violence, gender-based violence. The issues are endless. You know, the period of COVID where so many people have lost their lives. You know, in this room of so many people, how many of us can say, okay, I can put my hand up and I received therapy, I received counseling after such a traumatic experience happened. So what I would say is that our country needs more therapeutic services and counseling available. I can give you an example of a little youngster in Wentworth, right? He's going through such an incredibly difficult time. He lost his father at a really young age. His mother is incarcerated. There's abusive household, there's drug abuse, there's gender-based violence, you name it. Now, this is a school-going child. How do we expect somebody like that is going to school to function properly, you know, not knowing that he might have not eaten in the morning, that he's overly stressed, he has anxiety, he's suffering with depression, and then this child goes to school and this child is being shouted at the teacher or by the principal. You are now exacerbating this child's condition. So what I would say as a people, we need more therapy, we need more counseling, because I know it is a stigma in our community, but therapy and counseling needs to be more available. We need to encourage that. We need to start saying that I'm not okay, and that is okay, and I need to find myself some therapy, some counseling, so I can be okay, so we can actually stop this generation and the cycle that is happening in our community and communities in South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My mom's been a teacher for 45 years, and I am privileged to now be teaching. A lot of things that people say and think, they don't express. But all I want to say for today is, gone are the days where your child is my child. Can we be parents to every child? Can the parents not protect their children? Can your neighbor's child be my child? And not the parents whose child is doing the wrong protect their child, because we are growing up the future, guys. So we need to be parents to all the children around us. Maybe then we'll change. Thank you.
Thank you. And we've got one more, Uncle Putz. Where's you, Uncle Putz? You put your hand up. Oh, you put your hand up. Oh.
Hi. Hi, my name is Brian Finn. Please excuse me for not standing. I'm going to ask Elvis to stand for me. I was fortunate enough to grow up in probably the most upmarket suburb of Wentworth, Hime Street. And I can tell you, I spent a good 20 years there. The point I'm coming back to is one you touched on earlier, but it hasn't been touched here. All these are our football colleagues, all the ex-Leeds guys. And we want to talk a little bit about sport and where's it been. Because I can tell you now, take a walk around, the football fields are the same as they were 50 years ago when we were playing. And you can say it's advanced because you have people of color in the national sides. Let's go to grassroots. Let's see what's been put into grassroots to develop all the different sports. Gary and I were just talking, and we said we don't support South African, not just football, we don't support South African sport, period. And there's a reason for that. There is absolutely nothing going in to grassroots level of all types of sport. Cricket, rugby, you see all the black guys, the colored guys playing for the Springboks. But go and see where they're coming from. They're coming from areas of affluence. They are not coming from, you know, like how Wentworth produced footballers. Wentworth produced probably the best footballers in Durban. We talk about guys like Gary, Dennis, Putz, Elvis, Chiza Baptist, who for me was one of the greatest. Right? And it came out of where? Out of all these poverty-stricken flats that we grew up in. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there was just, okay. 30 seconds, 30 seconds.
30 seconds. 30.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, I want to be grateful to all of you in this room and touching the basics and cry for back to basics. When I was born here in Happy Valley, 68 years ago, we knew everybody. We had respect for everybody, including my teachers that taught me. Yeah, we could say, there is my teacher, and I'm grateful even for my classmates. There's some of them here sitting with me. This very spot, I spent about 6 years in school, a place called Northgate. Remember? Northgate School. I spent 38 years in Engine. In those years, I made a difference in myself, not to go the norm. So from soccer, I entered. We started running. 1986, we established a running club here. call wings, and it's still going. So we didn't stick to the norm. What I'm saying, you make the choice in your life. You make the difference. And remember God be the center of it all. And we can achieve many things in our lives if we acknowledge one another, work together as one another. And I want to say thank you for the real achievements that we can see. I've brushed sides with Judge Theron and as a chairperson in some of the schools. So you and I must have visions for our children. Don't think of the yesterdays, think about the tomorrows. Think about the opportunities and grab hold of it. And don't let it pass you, because you'll be the loser in the end. Thank you.
Thank you. So, thank you so much for everybody that contributed to this discussion. These conversations are going to be ongoing. I know that many of the centers in the community are wanting to have further dialogue about what are some of the solutions that we are experiencing as a community and what can we do collectively. Because if you want to run fast, you run by yourself. But if you want to run far, you run together. And as a community, we need to understand as to how do we run together, because everybody got something to give. There's that mathematical equation that the whole is more than sum of its parts. One part can't do much. It's the whole that's going to heal our community, reclaim our community, restore our community, rejuvenate our community. And with the young people that don't get spoken about, the young people that are doing good in this community that so often get ignored, they will show us the way. We just need to open up a pathway for that to happen. Led, guided by those that came before us. So what we're going to do right now, so thank you again everybody. Give yourselves a round of applause. What we're going to do right now, just before we go to lunch, we're going to just tell you why we're moving into the segment of the Wentworth History book. Just for 5 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes, we're going to just speak about the book. We're going to have lunch, and then we're going to have the pleasure and the honor and the privilege of listening to Mr. Glen Manning speaking about how do we preserve our history, which means that he won't run away after lunch. He's stuck here. And the Wentworth History book, which just arrived now, earlier on, is on sale by a colleague of ours. Her name was Shanice. Shanice, can you wave? She managed, Shanice, how much was the book going for initially? The book was going for $2.95. That lady in the back there, her name is Shanice, managed to get it down to 150 Rand just for today. So please, everybody, give Shanice a round of applause. So the book is on sale. You can purchase it during lunchtime. But I want to call Marie, Teresa, Dr. Bronwyn, Marilyn, and Doc to the front, please. So ladies and gentlemen, your very own, from the community of Wentworth, Dr. Bronwyn Anderson, Marilyn, Marie, Teresa, Dr. Greg Houston, and Professor Heidi van Rooyen, who are the authors of the Wentworth Social History book, your very own. and they had conducted hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interviews, and this just happens to be the very first book, volume 1. There's still, a lot of people were fighting with us and say, why weren't we included in the very first book? And we said, but it was going to have a problem putting about 200, 300 interviews in one book. It would have been thicker than the Bible. So we're hoping that we're going to have a volume 2, volume 3, and volume 4. So ladies and gentlemen, the authors from Wentworth. We now going to play. Heidi will explain why she's not here. She would love to be here, and she sent this video. Heidi grew up right here down the road. So I'm just going to play a video.
Hi everyone, I'm so excited to be able to join you today for the launch of this book, the Wentworth Social History book. And some of you may know that I joined you from the US. I recently moved here about 6 weeks ago to take up a job at the University of Washington. You also would know that the US has just recently gone through a presidential election that has been difficult and contentious, and the outcome of which may not be pleasing to everybody in the world. In fact, there's concern about what this might mean for many around the world. So given this context, I actually think the timing of this book launch is really, really important. And I think that because I fundamentally believe that whatever the problems are in our world, the solutions to those rest in the hands of ordinary people, rests in the hands of community, that the solutions to whatever the problems and difficulties are actually must happen from the ground up. And that's actually the title of this book. Now, a couple of years ago, some of us got together, the co-editors on this book got together. You will notice that as you look at these editors today and you meet them and you get them to sign your books, you will notice that we are intergenerational. Now, of course, Greg, Doc, is the oldest, the old dog in the book, and we really want to thank him for his energy and commitment throughout the book in kind of getting it to this particular point. But all of the members of that editorial team, we kind of got together, I think motivated by a similar desire, and that's how we actually found each other. Motivated by a desire and a realization that Wentworth has shaped all of us in so many ways, that Wentworth has produced quite extraordinary, ordinary people. And we wanted to kind of find a way of capturing these ordinary, extraordinary stories. I think we all were and do feel a huge debt to that little spot on the east coast of Durban that has kind of created all of us, that has left us with a sense of purpose, of mission, that has created in all of us a sense of resilience, a sense of belief and hope for ourselves, for our children, that keeps us kind of moving forward and dreaming and hoping. Wentworth has kind of instilled all of that in all of us, even in the most difficult circumstances that continue to exist in Wentworth. But it's created, I think, quite incredible and quite remarkable human beings. And we wanted to tell that story. I think we also realized that in the bigger story of South Africa and its history and its place in the world, it felt like these stories, the stories of the people of this particular community, needed to be heard, needed to be recorded. We are quite a mixed match of people, and you'll hear that as you look at and listen to all these stories that happen in the book. We come from all kinds of places. We were moved from all kinds of places to this particular community. And we did some really, really incredible things. We created home, we created family, we created spaces of worship, we found our way through sport. We figured out that education was actually key and critical to us being able to kind of move ourselves, our families, and our children forward. We showed entrepreneurship. We worked at early and young ages to create for ourselves, for our family. And so you'll see in these stories of ordinary men and women in Wentworth across the ages from the early 60s to now, you'll see, I think, and be inspired and motivated by these stories of ordinary, extraordinary people from Wentworth. And so I think the greatest pleasure for us as we put together this book, and we're going to do another volume. There were so many interviews we had. We couldn't put them all in one book. So this is the first of a couple of volumes of books. I think for me and for all of us, as we kind of read your stories, as we all took turns at editing various stories, I think we were struck by some of those things I mentioned earlier on. I think your sheer brilliance, the sheer brilliance of people from Wentworth, your resilience, your ability to find a way, that wonderful, wonderful sense of community that we are often nostalgic about, those days when you belonged to Auntie so-and-so. Auntie so-and-so saw you on the corner doing something that you shouldn't be doing, and she was quite free and able to kind of give you a sharp clap around the ears. But that real sense of community, which kind of characterizes, I think, Wentworth, and still exists today. There is still, it might be different, it might have taken different shapes and forms, things might feel a little different in now, but that sense of community, that sense of we matter, that sense of we need each other to figure out a way through whatever moments and crises we are dealing with now in Wentworth, whatever moments and crises we are dealing with then in Wentworth, that sense that community is at the heart of that. I think you'll get a sense of that captured in these wonderful stories of these wonderful contributors. So I'm really, really sorry I cannot be there in person to celebrate. I hope that some of my family are there representing me. Now, if you're not sure who they are way more beautiful than I am. And then just look at me, times 10, those are some of my sisters. My brother, what can I say? My brother is my brother, and we love him dearly. There's only one of him. But I do wish you a wonderful, wonderful day, celebrating these stories, reliving some of those moments through the exhibition and the pictures and images we have for you throughout this day. But that you have a moment of just being able to listen to, hear some of these stories, to have a sense of pride for where we've been and how much we've achieved individually and as a community. And yeah, I just wish you all really, really well in this day. I send you much love and all the very best. Bye-bye.
Somebody once said, why must somebody tell our stories? Right now we're telling our own stories. And this book was created, was developed, designed by some of the people that are sitting in this room and by Wentworth itself. And I'm going to call to the front the man really, really behind it, who's been the heart and the core of this book, who will just speak a few lines on the book itself, and then we're going to break for lunch. All right? Thanks.
Thank you, Darren. I'm hungry. I thought you were going to speak after this. I can't speak for a minute. I have to follow up on that. I was the one who conceived the idea of the book. And this occurred in around the year 2011. I had just returned to the HSRC in 2010 after working for 9 years on a project on the history of the liberation struggle. This was a presidential project initiated by then President Thabo Mbeki. And the last task I had in the project was to produce a chapter on the reconstitution of the ANC inside the country, the period between 1990 and 1994, in which the ANC returns from exile and then reconstitutes itself inside the country. And in the course of that research, I came across a series of interviews conducted with political leaders, the Alan Busacks, the Jakes Gerwels, the Chris Hanis, and so on, that is openly accessible on what is called the O'Malley Archives in the Nelson Mandela Foundation website. These were interviews conducted. I met Patrick O'Malley, by the way. He's an Irishman who's a very drunkard, I mean real drunkard, but he produced such fantastic work that has a fundamental role in influencing what we do, because capturing our people's stories is so important. Now, O'Malley, those interviews drew my concern to one important element. From the early 1990s, our political leaders were beginning to become concerned about something that was emerging. And that was the growth of a narrow nationalism. People like Jakes Harwell were beginning to become concerned that there was an African nationalism that was emerging. There's an Indian nationalism that was emerging. There's a colored nationalism that was starting to emerge among people who a few years before had been constituted as the UDF, which was a multiracial or non-racial organization. All of a sudden, people were identifying themselves in terms of race. And after returning to the HSRC, my research and other research I've come across there is an increasing race consciousness among people in all our communities. We identify as a race. There are many people who say, I'm proudly colored. Now, for me, I think that is the biggest problem we have in this country, in terms of the fact that I am not the same as all of you. I do not have the same political interests that you all have, or the political outlook. I have a different education level to all of you. I earn less than Doggy Manning, of course, but somehow I earn more than other people. I live in an area that might be better than others, and so on. We look differently. We have ancestry which is different, but we are colored. And who said we are colored? So I have a problem with that. The other thing is science has proven that there's no difference between people of race. You are not more intelligent than me because you are fairer than me, or somebody called you a European or a white. You are not more capable than me because you are whiter than me. I am fair, so I don't have a problem if people believe that. But science has proven that the differences between me and my brother, who has got blue eyes, is as significant as the difference between me and a person who's classified as African. So I initiated the project, and the plan was to have 4 social history projects. 1 in a colored community, 1 in Black African community, 1 in a white community, and 1 in a historically Indian community. So that I can show that we can, out of these studies, we can see how different we are as so-called colored people. We are different. We are not the same. Any one of us sitting here do not fit those stereotypes of what other people think of us as coloreds. Nor does every Indian fit a stereotype of what we think of Indians or white people. And at the same time, we share a common humanity. This book brings that out. The concerns that you have, Monica, or the concerns somebody in Santon has. The concerns and the desires, the experiences that you have, or the experiences of people from different race groups. And the most important thing that I came out of this book, the commissioning editor of the HSRC is an African, Mtunzi. And the first thing he said to me after he read the manuscript was, it was like reading the stories of people I know. This is someone who can read that story and read it like an African person that is his neighbor, that same story. So this is what I needed to bring out in this, because we all have different objectives around the book. But that is what I hope people can get out of it, that we need to see how different we are, yet how common we are to people that are not the same as us in terms of race. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We're going to now have lunch, and lunch will be served to your table. And the books will also be on sale during this time. Thanks, everybody. We'll return after lunch. Some stretches. Ellen, what's that war cry you'll do every time you march here in Wentworth? Everywhere we go. So I'm going to call Dr. Houston to the front so that he can introduce I'm saying Dr. Glen Manning. Here's Doc.
Yeah, thank you, Jared. I just have a small announcement. Our plan after Glen speaks was to hand out a free copy of the book to all the people who are in the book, whose life stories are in the book, to the individuals. However, we're having a problem. There's certain people that still want to buy the book. So those people who are not here will not receive their free copy of the book. Those who are here will receive it, and then we'll replace those books later. The HSRC only printed 100 copies of the book now, just for the launch, and then the bulk printing comes from next week. So the book will be available in bookstores and so on from next week. So as soon as we have finished handing out the books and those that are left, you are not going to get this. It's $83 on Amazon. And I think the American bookseller is selling it for almost 3,000 rand. So if you're in Australia, if you have relatives in Australia, you want to send this book to, you better buy them now. Our guest, our keynote speaker for this session is a former classmate of mine, slightly older than me, but we were in the same class. The reason we actually selected him, is because one could have called someone who's older. But we wanted somebody who grew up as a child, and went through the experience of being a child in Wentworth, and as adults in Wentworth. So Glen has been here. I think the family came in the early 60s from Clearwood. Glen, is that right? And then his family has been prominent. Everybody knows Mrs. Manning, late Mrs. Manning, and of course all of us had to go to Dr. Manning. I still got a scar on my knee that he left me with here. So Glen has a very short CV, a one-liner, a jazz lover, music lover, sports lover, and he reminded me that I'm called Dr. Austin. He is Glen Manning Esquire. That is why you call a lawyers. Glen Manning Esquire, please come forward and give us your speech. I had to bribe him with a trip to Cape Town, by the way.
Thank you, Doc. Doc was in my class, but he's not my class. Let's just get that clear. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming out here. Last week we had a fabulous function in the Rooks Road Park called Ubuntu, and there I commended, I think it's Lawrence Palmer and Lorraine Richard and so forth for putting together a very aspirational function. And today, again, we gathered here to honor all the people that made up the fabric of Wentworth. In touching on the social history of Wentworth, I'm not going to tell any jokes because I've learned my lesson there, right? At one time, I made a joke about Princess Diana. On my way home that day, put the radio on, found out she's died. 2 months or so later, same story, joke about Michael Jackson. Put the TV on later that night, Michael Jackson gone. Same thing with Amy Winehouse, joke about her, later gone. So I'm not going to tell any jokes, but I don't know if you know the one about Julius Malema and Zuma. No? Okay, right. I should say thank you, Mr. MC, and we also need to thank our veterans here, right? When we say all protocols observed, we reserve that for our elite elders, and that will be Albert Stevens here, 80 years plus, Ivan Sital, Angie Sital, 81, 86 years, and of course, Errol Birdie Burgess, who was not only a fantastic musician, but a beautiful singer. And Birdie, in fact, was not always a good guy. He taught me at Durban School, Senate 6, and at the time they had the community chest, fundraising. And what would happen, because of that fundraising effort, Birdie every day would give us a history test out of 20. And if you got 12 out of 20, you had to start making choices. Either you put the 8 cents for the marks you didn't get into the community chest tin. Alternatively, you took 8 cuts. So you had to make a decision, right? So he gave you another option, and that is you could either take the cuts on your hand, or like the girls did, or on your backside. So we would firstly choose to take the cuts, and we'd secondly go for the hand. But by the 4th shot, we'd say, you know what, I think it's better to go on the backside kind of thing, right? So Wentworth, whether you were from West Road, to Woodstock, from Durant Road to Dudley Street. You were all part of a social fabric, a network of people that bound us together. And if you consider, Wentworth is in fact about 3 square kilometers, right? It extends from Jerusalem's Cafe, where Dudley Street starts, down to Tara Road, and from Tara Road to the barracks by the oil refinery. But about 2 years ago, I did an informal survey on Facebook, and I asked firstly, how many lawyers were born and bred in Wentworth? Not those who came in, I'm talking about born and bred. And the answer from all the people was 54, right? I then later asked the question, how many doctors were born and bred in Wentworth? And it was 58. Now that was 2 years ago. The probability is that there's probably 60 plus of each genre of career. And that really means, taking into account the square kilometer of Durban, of Wentworth rather, in every 30 square meters, which is probably the size of this stage here, a lawyer or a doctor was born or bred rather, in Wentworth, which is, according to a friend of mine who does statistics, it's probably got to be a record for the country, in fact. Now, you know, part of this social fabric I spoke about had a cast of characters that was just unbelievable. I mean, we all know Johnny Ma'ai. We know Big Nose Twas. We know Baybucks. We know Van Dyne. Mosey, the removal guy. Who knows Mosey, the removal jab? What's his surname? Hambert. Moses Hambert. And Raymond Hambert, there you go. And Mosey was probably the original entrepreneur in Wentworth, because I remember I stayed in Tain Road, and Mosey started out as a carry boy. When the bus would stop in Austerville, he would then go to the women, carry their groceries and veggies, what have you, home, and later he got a little, what we'll call it, a trolley, and then he evolved, into a kumbi, and then, of course, his truck. We also had Vera, our friendly ghost, and we had our panty slitter, what a prowler and panty slitter. I asked that question the other day, and some people were denying it, and some women said it was very real. There was a lot of speculation as to who it was. Thankfully, no one said it was me, right? Of course, there was the famous Van Dyne, and Granny Johnson, yeah? And what a mouth she had on her, that old auntie. So, of course, sorry? Granny Chu. Oh, for Farfi. Okay, I didn't come across her. The well-known policeman, what was his name now? Swanepoel, who looked very colored, and I think because of that he took it out on us here, right? But if you had Swanepoel, you had to have had Abu, right? William Leslie, who was a fantastic musician too. Abu later, as life took him, went down the wrong path. But the story is that at the Austerville bus stop there, the Austerville guys were gambling, and Abu, for some reason, wasn't gambling this day. He decided he's going to keep spy, as it were. And while he's standing there having a cigarette, next thing he sees a police van making its way down very fast. And out jumps Swanepoel. And as Swanepoel jumps out, Abu starts whistling, with the result that all the gambling guys split in all different directions. And of course, Swanepoel comes to Abu and says, hey, why are you whistling when I'm coming? And Abu says, why are you coming when I'm whistling? Of course, the people have touched on the political aspect here. You know, the biggest contingent of political prisoners on Robben Island came from Wentworth, right? I've visited Robben Island 3 times, not going to jail, just as a visit tourist. And the most touching and emotional visit for me was the first one I went to, because in the various cells there were were people's names that I knew personally. There were about 7, 8 of them there. And in each cell they have memorabilia, right? A little pin, maybe a belt, and different little articles that the prisoners held onto just as a form of comfort for some reason. And the story is still going to be told about the freedom fighters of Wentworth. Of course, Robert McBride, Derek McBride, in my view, Derek McBride was a far truer revolutionary than Robert. You may not agree with his politics, but let me tell you, his politics were pure, and his heart in pursuit of the politics was pure. He took no prisoners whatsoever. His bravery with him, Robert, Greta, whom I saw here earlier, in what they did, nobody in this country, Mkonte were seas where nobody did what they did. And as I said, one day the true story of their role is going to be told. If you went to a van, a mobile van, and you ask for one steady, one fresh, one zigzag, one straight, what are you asking for? A steady is? Yeah, a fresh? Yes, but steady milk and fresh milk, zigzag bread with a design on the top and straight, right? So Smiles was the person, the original mobile shop, right? And of course you went there and always took it on what we call credit. Yeah, we took everything on credit those days. When the account came at the end of the month, it was another story, right? Of course, the soccer aspect of Wentworth has been spoken about so much. We had, we talk about heroes. We came, in fact, to this very hall here on Friday nights, Northgate School, in search of heroes in the form of John Wayne and Audie Murphy and Jack Palance and so forth, not knowing that we had, in fact, had heroes right here walking and breathing with us every day in the form of people like Freddie Hodnett, Austerville, Albie George, Radiant Lads, Ronnie Matthews, Preston, Zoot, Henry, All Blacks, my uncle Derek Fayers, Arsenal, Mrs. Hoyce, Aston Kellys. The list was endless. And the point about that is that, take Freddie Mercury as an example. Freddie Mercury, God bless his soul. Freddie Hodnett. He probably had like 12 children. But if you played soccer and he saw potential in you, he would take you under his wing, he would get you football boots, he'll get you a jersey and everything so that you fulfill your potential. And as I said, the list of people who played that role as heroes is endless. The referees, there was Mr. Bloy, Mr. Martin. I spoke last week about Red Card Frankie. I think his surname was Roscrouge. Frankie Roscrouge was known as Red Card because he didn't have a yellow card, right? If you did something wrong, he put his whistle to his lips, he blew once. And if you didn't take action, straight away the red card came out. But the red card was in fact not a card. It was a packet of red Lexington, which was in his top pocket. So that was in fact his red card. So these are the various heroes that permeated our society for the last 60, 70 years or so, from the time when I had hair, in fact. So, Dr. Kevin Cosby, in his eulogy for Muhammad Ali, said, I looked up in the sky to see if Jesus was coming down, and I expected to see him in robes that would make my eyes glow. But in fact, Jesus, when he came along, he had robes that were torn, and he was walking with shuffling feet. And the reason that his robes were torn and he was walking with shuffling feet is because he had just come from hanging out and helping the people in Heim Street. We had our own Jesuses here. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Darren has disappeared. He's coming. I think our next item is basically to hand out the books to the people who are in the book. Darian?
So we do understand that some of the people that are in the book are not here, but for those that are here, we're going to hand out the book to you. And what we're going to have on the PowerPoints is just a small little tiny paragraph of that person's story. And like we said before, we couldn't include everybody's story. And the book itself, the stories that are in this book, is the way the individual saw Wentworth through their lens, through their eyes. It's their experiences, their life experiences. So we're going to start with, and if we could have the authors of the book up here, we're going to start with we're just waiting for prominent V6. Teresa and Marie. Mr. Albert Stevens. And once you've got your book, don't run away. We'd like to take a picture with all of the people that were in the book. I know Uncle Errol and Auntie Edna have left already. Mrs. Marie. Sorry? Doc?
In fact, they wanted Quentin Manto to pick it up here, but we're going to leave those books for sale, and then we will give that to them from Monday or Tuesday.
Mrs. Marie Bessia. Thank you. Auntie Lorraine Callahan. Marie is coming to you. Auntie Mons, can you model to the front for us, please? Monica Brown. Auntie Ethnie Ogle. Give Auntie Ethnie a big round of applause. Auntie Greta Applegreen. Mr. Desmond de Saw. Our environmental warrior. Uncle Brian Finn. Mr. Anthony Hully. Dr. Bronwyn Anderson. Lux. Colin Ogle? Are you here? No. Bronwyn Jacobs. Absent. Irene Taylor Finn. And my brother, Mr. Alan Holmes. Just to make mention of those that are not here but are in the book, Mr. Charles Smith, Mr. Hector Henry, Mrs. Teresa Saber Sr., Teresa's mum, Pastor Colin Lafoy, Mr. Errol Burgess, Edna Burgess, Phoenicia Deploy, Elaine Clements, Eric Walgie, Leona Theron, Colin Ogle, Bronwyn Jacobs, William Goldstone, and this is volume 1 of the Wentworth History book. So as we said, we're still in the process of completing volume 2 at the moment. Some of us are writing non-stop. So what we're going to do right now is just have an open space before we go into the closing remarks and the votes of thanks. Any questions about the book or anything that you want to know about the book, be it the conceptualization phase, be it anything that you want to know. We've got all the authors here, myself, Marie, Teresa, Marilyn, Doc, and Bronwyn, who will be able to answer any of your questions. Stay, are you still here? Marvin? If you have any questions, please raise your hands and we'll get a mic to you.
I want to make a comment.
Okay, sure. Another mic. Please don't ask us hard questions. We finished here that nice biryani. Marvin? No, to help you with the mic. To pass it around. Okay, thanks. I see a hand in the back.
Hi, my name's Iris. Not a question per se, but just to thank the HSRC for honoring our heroes. I don't think that people spend enough money and enough time telling our stories. And I think that what this project aims to do is to just create a capsule, a time capsule of people of this time and what they did and what they stood for. So really, I think this is an incredible project for our children, for them to read about this and know that they stand on the shoulders of those that came before. Thank you so much for also including, you know, the much wiser ones, I won't say older, and the younger generation, and to be able to include them all. It's just, to have, you know, Mrs. Bessier in the book is just incredible. So thank you so much for this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions about the book? Kanya.
I think we've spoken a lot about our hopes and dreams in general, but are there any specific KPIs, I suppose, of the book, of the project that you have envisioned, that you want to see come out of these stories and the book and the volumes?
Thank you. I think I told my side of the story, but I think each one, I want people to identify us as different. I want us to identify us as human beings. There's only one race. That's what I want people to identify. From reading this book, that you can see an uncle that you know, an aunt that you know that's in the stories. But at the same time, for somebody who's Indian or African and so on, to see the same thing. Because I don't believe in race, so I'm hoping that that comes out. And also the second thing is how the different changes from apartheid to democracy affected us differently. Some of us are wealthy today. Some of us are poorer than we were before. So it affected us differently, and it comes out in there, so we need to see around us how it affected other people as well. I'm sure the others came in there, they didn't know what the objective was. I only told them afterwards, so they might have a different answer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the question. Okay, sorry, didn't get your name again. I think one of the important things that we should really consider about this book is that there is very, very little material regarding colored people. And because we are sort of homogenized and we are considered across the country by other races particularly as one, this book actually portrays a much clearer image and a much clearer perspective of what colored identity is and the way it's different, that diversity, and that we are different, although we are all living in Wentworth, but we come from different places, different locations, spaces, and what we need to understand is that we differ across the country. We differ physically, we differ linguistically, we differ in the ways in which we, I don't know how to use this word, but culturally. So I think the stories that come out of here are so diverse, but also there's a great amount of similarity. And this also now can go forward in getting our kids, the young people in Wentworth, to actually look at these books, read these books. This is not an academic book. This is a book that's accessible to everybody, and anyone can read it. So I think that's so important, and we hope that the actual purpose of the book is achieved.
For us younger authors, when we began the process with Doc and the rest of the other team, I don't think we knew what we were getting ourselves into. For me, the purpose, especially for us, the younger generation, was to see where we come from, because how do we know where we're going if we don't know where we come from? And a lot of our stories are not being told. And listening and hearing the stories, sitting in a house, in a room, outside, and going through those interviews was mind-blowing, hearing the different stories. I think the most difficult part of it was when we had the interview and we had to transcribe it. So we had to write down everything that was said in the interview. And I think some of those stories hit home like a hammer. Some of the stories that we've heard haunt us up till today. And some of those stories that we've heard give us so much hope and give us so much encouragement and motivation. And it tells us that if those that came before us could go what they went through, then there's no excuse for us as the younger generation but to stand on the shoulders of giants. So we're hoping that the young people in the community have the opportunity, and for the principals that are sitting here, maybe that's an opportunity for us to come through to the schools and tell the stories. Because if we take it back to indigenous times, storytelling was a vital part of life. And if we can instill that again in our schools where we are telling our stories, our young people can start to find a sense of pride, dignity, and honor of the challenges and the struggles and the toils that you have been through, and how we can get a little bit more stronger in the mix. Any other questions? I see you, Professor Darren. I see you, Mr. Cotton.
So I know you don't want to answer any more questions, but I have to ask this one, given what you had to say about the global, I think there were 10 communities chosen. So this is an interaction between representatives of that community and the authors. And I presume the same thing takes place elsewhere in the country. Is there not an opportunity to be afforded a combination, where possible, where colored people are here talking about colored people who've written about their lives living in a colored township in South Africa? If the same thing's happening in Sandton and Gugulethu, is there not more to be gained in some way in the short to medium term by bringing well-chosen representatives from all of those to have a conversation about just how similar you are in spite of your indications to the contrary?
Thank you for that question. I think that question applies to both projects. I think that question applies to both projects, Democracy at Tetsi and because I looked at the Langa material and the Bwani. They're similar experiences. Their crime levels are almost the same. The housing issues are different. They got informal settlements there, massive informal settlements there. But there is that need for that common conversation across communities because they also have solutions, suggested solutions, and implemented solutions to the challenges. They have an economy that's based around tourism. They've developed that very strongly. So there's that conversation. I also think you are right. We also did we implemented a similar study, social history study in Langa. It's still another nightmare for me because I can tell you the task of editing these interviews is a nightmare. It's torture to take an interview and to turn it into a story. And we interviewed 30 people in Langa. And I'm regretting my promise to actually turn that into a book as well. But it is an interesting thing that we need to have these conversations across communities. And I think I must say, I've spoken a lot to Des. Des is a person who does that. He draws across communities more than anybody else I know. There probably are other people who do that. But we need this interaction. And this is what is suggested by a number of people when they talk about interracial relations. People are saying it's very positive, but we need more interaction. Across communities talking to each other. How often do we talk to the community of Bluff? The white people, historically white people. Chatsworth, Meerbank. I was talking to Pops earlier on and he said there's hardly any people from Meerbank here. So sorry, I'm going into a long story, but I think we need this interaction. Because I have girlfriends across race groups in my life. I didn't see any difference between them. I have friends across race group. There isn't a difference. Because once we get to know each other, we have common interests and we are the same. So the more we interact with people, the more we get to understand their challenges and our similarities and a common thing. So I agree with you. We need to take these types of things into other communities and perhaps launch elsewhere. Ron.
Thank you. Ellen and then Valentine in the back there. Thanks.
I like what's happening today. Our history's been told. But we need to do more in the schools. We need to have an art section, a culture section, where our heroes are on the wall. You know, and then the children can ask, hey, which uncle is that? Uncle Gary Goldstone. He played this and he did that. That's one. The second one, we should have a wall of fame in our community with the guys' pictures and their names and their books they wrote. You getting me? Because we need to conscientize our children. You see, for example, I look a good age, but I'm only 48. And a lot of stories, I've just been hearing the stories. All these stories I've just been hearing about the leads. We're hearing how they were professional. You know, we are hearing, it's like there's a missing gap, I should say. Because we one day when they were doing things, I can talk about suburbs, you know what I'm trying to say, because I witnessed suburbs when they were doing things. So there's a missing gap. When I say this here, the richest place I always say is a cemetery. Because we people went to their dreams, their visions, their books, their skills that they're supposed to be passing on. So we need to pass on a legacy project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Valentine?
Good afternoon, everybody. Firstly, I'd like to commend Doc and the whole crew for bringing this book together. Based on what's written in the book, it's something that's supposed to have been done a very long time. It's a pity that it's only taken us over now because of the democracy. I want to agree with Doc in his first comment where he said that when I look back, I don't see any history of Wentworth besides the people that are sitting here, besides the people who have told their stories in the book. Then I also want to second Alan on what he said. You know, when you go to town, you find there's a museum there. In that museum, you'll find everything except a history about colors. I know Doc said that there's, he's not racist, so he doesn't believe in race. I don't believe in racism too. But when you look at it, you know, logically, it's something that's against us. And as you'll have written this book, and I know the chapters and the book still to come after that there, I'm also asking if you all, as the HSRC, can establish a building somewhere that is going to keep the history of Wentworth, of all the fallen heroes and all the heroes that are still going to come. So if it's possible, Doc, I leave it in your hands. I know you said you're retiring, but you can't retire until we say you retire.
Valentine, they retired me, so I have no choice in that thing. There's a lot of people in the various projects we spoke about who pointed out that we do not have a museum. And Wentworth, there was a group of us were in discussion. I mean, there's the old Alan Taylor residence there, which should be declared a national heritage site, by the way. It should be a heritage site. It has national implications because the number of people who went through there were doctors today, ministers. Steve Biko was there. So, I mean, when we were talking, I mean, it didn't go far. Ellen is here because we all get directed in different directions. But there is a need to push that process forward in which we have a space where the photographs that are sitting among many of our people, and some of them are here, do not get lost. Like Hector Henry has got archives. He says his children, you know, the children that come after him are not interested. Those things get lost. So it's not up to the HSRC. It is up to the community to say, this is what we want. I believe that this community has got the resources, the skills, to build a soccer stadium here on Ogle Road. If we could put, say, every house a brick, how many houses could put bricks there? We've got people who are architects, we've got people who build stadia. So that's just one thing. But we don't have the will. We have a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit of an outsider, yeah, although I own a house in this place. I have a house in Bonwell Avenue. So I have an interest in being something happening here. But I'm a bit of an outsider because you people know more about each other than I do. But I see something that is common to what is in other places. It's the same thing in Langa, by the way. People have a lack of trust in each other. And this is what you need, first of all, is to trust each other. The minute somebody says, we have written a book, somebody's going to ask, but hey, is there royalties there? Are the authors getting money? Somebody's already asked that, by the way. So it's something that you're looking at, something's getting something out of everything that you do. How do we go beyond that? Because those things are so possible, Valentine. As I said, we can build a stadium. If we say we want to build a stadium, there's Alvis will be sitting there in the stadium and helping. Am I right, Alvis? You'll be there every day, even if it means mixing the dagger. We will be able to do it. So it's up to you. And we've said this a lot of times. It's going in circles, and we probably said it my parents probably said it when they were here years ago. But it's up to you. And I was hoping the Democracy at 30 process would lead to this. We were hoping that we would come to a community mbizo in which we could say, okay, when we're looking at the issue of education, these are the challenges. Who are the people that can take steps forward? But the funding wasn't there. And Darian has suggested, and Darian said this is quite possible, that we don't need funding to do that. We can have workshops if people come, because we gave people a stipend, a little bit of money. But people can meet, and Darian, those of us who got skills in facilitating, can get people together. There's Rochelle and them who are participating in to take these type of conversations forward about how we deal with crime, how we deal with the education issues, instead of everybody sitting in different pockets criticizing and saying this is what we should do. So it's up to the community to say, do you want this team? Or anybody else who's interested, like Anthony, who's now retired, who's got a lot of time on his hand, to participate in such a process. Are you still willing to take that process forward? The workshops? You can explain.
Any other questions before we close? Marvin? Thanks, Aryan.
Thank you. I was contemplating on the statement or comment that I'm about to make, and throughout the day I was trying to direct my words and compose them in a proper, non-emotional way. And because coming from Wentworth, sometimes you get so emotional and being part of the process of change. I just want to go back on Mrs. Bassier's point, which she said so rightly. We need to turn the finger and ask yourself, why am I doing this? What is my motive? You need to search yourself. And then the gentleman that said, what are we doing and how can we change it? And being a child of Wentworth, my family moved here in 1974. I was born in Sydenham, and I was born in a family of 5 brothers, only 2 sisters. And because I was so low down in the chain that I don't even have an awesome memory of Mr. Brian Finn, who is an elder in Hime Street, from Hime Street. And I'm trying to put my perspective, and I hope you bear with me. And I want you to get this lesson that I'm trying to express, is that there's so much gun violence going on outside, and we're losing so many young colored males. And we look on, because we're the non-violent people, we look on and we say, but what are these young people doing? They're killing themselves. Tomorrow we would not have future young colored males. And when we look at the so-called born-again, so-called community activists, and we look at how we move and operate, for lack of a better word, it's disgusting. And I say so because we've got, like I was a little Hime Street child, looking for an exit out of violence and out of poverty. And I was hoping that there would be role models in my neighborhood that will stretch their hand out and take me out of this misery. That continues. There's still young people waiting out there, looking for role models. But instead, what they see is you and I. You speak about programs, but every time we come to programs, we see your children, your sister's children, repeatedly benefiting from programs. Come on, really, as I will echo Mrs. Bass here, go home and search yourself. Because if you want anything to move forward in this community, it's going to start with you and I. You need to readjust your thinking. We keep on talking about changing the mindset of our community. We need to change our mindset. Hello, that is the reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Auntie Monica.
Okay, I wanted to say something, but see that you picked on that. I want to tell you that's so appropriate what Mrs. Bessie did say and what you saying. I'm standing there as a product of a mother that put me in prison. I pray to God that more mothers could arise like that. That's the only way you're going to get your child. It's all well and good to say search yourself. But what's the use of searching yourself if you're going to do nothing about it? My mother searched herself and said, the problem stems from me. I've got to act like a mother and give this child tough love. Now, this is why I'm saying this to you guys. Those mothers are gone. The mothers of today, I don't care who you are that's sitting here or outside there, you'll all come up for your children. It's all well and good to say, search yourself. Mrs. Bass is right. But we will do what my mother did. If you see your child's got a gun, will you take it to the police station? No, you won't. So please, parents, starting from ourselves, we are the cause of our children being monsters. Because the monster is within us. And we are in denial. As Mrs. Besser said, search. Yes, she made a point. But when we find that point, we're not going to do what we're supposed to do. Because you know why? That soft spot for your child. Well, I'll tell you this again. I've only had a mother when she put me in prison. That's the first time my mother became a mother. You know why she became a mother? Because she brought current affairs. She brought everyone, and I was doing nothing much wrong. I was only drinking. But because I felt there's nothing wrong, she saw the problem that I was bringing to myself and to my child. She saw it, but she couldn't handle it because she never drank in her life. I come from a very strict mother. She was very straight. So she couldn't handle it. She ran everywhere else. I even asked the one that got up Babalas. And I saw this lady, Mrs. Klaver. Miss Klaver, she was the probation officer at Colored Affairs. And I didn't know she came for me. So anyway, I went to the kitchen. I looked for ice water, being Barbie. And I thought, hey, now I've got to get a top. But she called me and she said, my mother brought me for her. Sorry, are you Monica? I said, yes. She said, sit down, I've come to see you. I said, why? She said, you've got a drink? I said, oh, I have. So she said, I've come to see if I can help you. I said, help me, how? Have you ever drank? Which I thought, I knew, mind you, I didn't make a point. I knew I was right because she couldn't help because she didn't know what I was going through. She didn't know. Have you ever drank in your life? Oh, she said, no. I said, do me a favor, please go on, Barbie. I need a drink at this moment. You make me more Barbie. Mom tried, but the day she got me to go to Masonic Grove, I still needed cigarettes. She said, my child, I've got it in my bag. She lied, but she thought I would escape. When I got to court, they gave you, that time they give you a fair trial. I said I needed help. It was a Friday, the 4th of November, 1988. I said to them, yes, I needed help. I didn't know Mom had prepared. She knows what I'm talking about. She used to work at Dayton Center. Mrs. Pretorius worked at a social worker, was sitting with Mom. I didn't know she had prepared with the social worker. If I agree, at that time, if you agree, you come home. Then they sent you away. I knew I'm going to be sent away from home, not knowing my mom had prepared to put me in prison till there's place in Kraaifontein. Today I stand here saying thank you, Lord, for what you did, because she taught me to give my child tough love, although she didn't go wrong. But I knew that's the only time I had a mother. That's the time when she showed me this is the way it's done. The first time. So don't be afraid, parents, to give your children tough love. Because you don't know deep down how you're not doing the right thing for them.
I'm from Merebank, I'm Ashok Chandika, and I just wanted to take up the sentiment that Dr. Houston mentioned earlier is we need to rebuild those bridges between the communities. But I want to thank and congratulate the HSRC, Dr. Houston and his team for writing this book, because it is only when we tell our own stories that they will get told. If we don't tell the stories, someone else will write them for us. Yes, we do need to work together. There is a book also on Merebank coming out next year, but there will be information sent out about that. But congratulations once again, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Oliver? Oliver?
Hi, good afternoon, it's Oliver. My question is more about process, and I mean, we've heard a lot of diverse lived experiences of being colored, and I just want to know, from the authors in terms of what's been the common threading themes that you'll found in these narrations, and how were those chosen for volume 1? And I might be preempting what volume 2 might look like, but would volume 2 have a different narration of people's lived experiences? So I'm not sure if that's clear. So what were the common threading themes that you found in the narrations as the editors? And I might be preempting what volume 2 would look like, but would that be, so I'm thinking in terms, okay, let me give an example. So like you might have found in volume 1 that people's narrations of like a political event or a political time were translated differently, and that's been the threading theme through volume 1 around people's lived experiences of coming to Wentworth or living in Wentworth. Could volume 2 look at different themes that people narrated then? And then the second question is around positionality as editors, particularly being an intergenerational bunch. How did you find analyzing some of those interviews in terms of your own position as somebody who's from Wentworth, who's colored, and obviously Darren yourself being much younger than some of the people that you interviewed? Like, what was your experience in analyzing those interviews?
I'll just answer one part of that question. But this book was not about coloredness. This book was about Wentworth and how Wentworth came about. This book was about where people came from, where people originated from, and how they found themselves in Wentworth, what their experiences were like during the apartheid era, what their experiences were like when having to be forcibly removed from the places that were their homestead. And that is what we wanted to gather as to how this vibrant community came about. What did it look like through the eyes of Greta Applegreen? What did it look like through the eyes of Mrs. Bassier, Ellen Holmes? We wanted to get an understanding of people's different experiences as to their experience to Wentworth. That was the one thing. The volume 2, we've also took into consideration the younger voices that needed to come to the fore. What were their experiences like? What was it like post and pre-apartheid? What was it like as a 40-year-old now in the era of democracy? What was it like back then during the time of apartheid? So the stories are very diverse. Each story tells a tale. Most of the stories tell a tale of hardships. And I think for me personally, one of the most disturbing parts of the book, which I don't know, maybe I shouldn't even mention, maybe on a personal note, is that many people spoke about returning back to the apartheid era. And that for me was a little bit disturbing. And that's why we felt the need to have a conversation with the younger generation and to what their experiences may be.
Thank you. The final chapter of the book, which we have not had a synopsis of here, constitutes the various themes that we thought we'd pull out of the book. It's about, people's migration, early life in Wentworth, migration here. There's about 6 themes. Coloredness is one of them. Just to comment on that, we all have different views of coloredness. Some of us, I've spoken about my view. Mr. Albert Stevens has a different view to Mr. Charles, but it's completely different. And we do tease that out a bit about how the difference is. But the themes that we picked, with hindsight, I saw that it restricted us in some ways, and actually, the one area where I found difficulty putting together was the contribution of colored people to the economy, to the country, you know, in various arts and sports and so on. Because it was based on what is in the book. However, if we have somebody who we interviewed knew much more about the contribution and spoke much more, like Brian probably could have done that, Brian Finn could have spoken much more about the contribution of Wentworth people to soccer in general, you know, the names of people, and teased out that story more. We could have built more in that section, so it's an imbalance. So we talk a lot about why people came. They came to Wentworth for different reasons. Some came because of housing, they needed housing. Some because there was work, employment nearby. And others because they were pushed out of the different areas. So it's a diverse story. And some were living in areas where there were communal toilets. Others were living with toilets inside. Others were moving to their own homes in Wentworth. So it's a diverse story that comes out that shows, you know, that there's so much more. I believe the story of Wentworth is the story of everybody who lived and worked in it. We will never be able to really reach that point where we say this is a history of Wentworth until every single person here and everyone we know that lives in it, the story is told. And I thought Doggy was going to touch a bit more on those important histories that we've lost. We've lost the story of Bully Larson, what his experience was, Bully Larson, and so on. There's so many people that my mother probably knew, could speak a lot, and she died just a few months before we started the project. So the effort to try to take this project forward is failing, because I wanted to set up a website. I've actually been working on it. It's just failing to do that, where people could every one of us has got an instrument to capture our story, and that's a cell phone. You have a recorder there, and you can capture that story. You don't need anybody else to do it.
Just to pick up on one of the points the speaker made, he spoke about positionality. And in my response, and I'm sure Greg will concur with me, that the book is not about us. The book is about our people's stories, our people in Wentworth, their stories. So our positions don't really matter in this regard. We're not writing about ourselves, and Greg does actually do a very good job on reflections at the end of the book. So the reflections might just touch on positionality, but just to answer your question, it's not about us, and so our positions don't really come into the fore here in this book. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to make one last comment before we close. The Wentworth Social History authors have been busy with the project over the past 2 years. And some of you might wonder why I'm making this announcement, but it's important, especially in our community. It's so important that we speak about this. Our authors have done this for free. So for the past 2 years, we have spent our own time voluntarily writing, editing, transcribing, taking photographs, and the likes. So, sorry? And interviewing for hours. Now, bearing in mind, if everybody lived in the same house, it would have been easier for us. But we had to travel the length and breadth of KZN with our own petrol, with our own resources to do all of that. And again, I say it's important that I make mention of it, because anything related to money in this community tends to divide us as a people. We somehow get a little bit lost in that story. Those books, Doc, what was the cost of the book publishing? Shanice, how much was it? About 300 odd thousand? Publishing a book of this nature cost about more than 300,000 or so. Not one single author is going to profit or benefit from these books. So I just want to make that very, very clear. Not an author, not one of us, not me, is going to benefit. The only thing that's good for us, our name is on the book. That's as far as it goes. But other than that, absolutely nothing. We did not also take the 300,000 rand from the community. It never came from Christ the King Deacon. It never came from St. Gabriel's Church. It never came from Austerville Baptist Church. It never came from assemblies. It never came from nowhere. It came through the HSRC and UKZN. That's as far as we're going. Anybody that participated in the book participated voluntarily, which means they did not get paid for the interviews or to participate in the process. I'm sure many of you are wondering, why am I saying this? It's important that I say this on record, that nobody got paid. I wish I got paid so that I can change my tires of my car, but those same tires were driving around to go and interview people. So, and the reason why the team done it, it's because we believe that the world is built on volunteerism. Everybody needs to eat. We get that. But the cornerstone of how this world operates is for people volunteering their time, their efforts, their talents, and you name it. Take away volunteerism and watch this world crumble. So there are many people, and out of the book, many projects have emerged from various people doing things on a voluntary basis. So I just wanted to make a declaration in terms of funds. So Marie just made an announcement, businessmen, you can fund the next book, okay?
Sorry, I just need to qualify what Darren said in the interest of transparency. I do get money out of this book, sorry. I'm the only one. I'm a research fellow of the history department at the University of Free State. For every publication, the Department of Higher Education gives an incentive to the university. And a portion of it goes into what I call a research entity, or it's research funds for me. It's a lot of money. I've published a lot over the years, and I've used the research funds that are published before to actually pay for those 30 books that we got today. I use my research funds to pay for the cover pictures. I will not use those research funds that come from this book for my own purpose. I've made that commitment to that team, and I'll keep to that commitment. I just want to say that because sometimes when you don't reveal things and somebody finds out, it becomes an explosion of something else. So I just want to be open. But I've made that commitment, and I'm doing it in front of you, and I'll be transparent with them, whatever money comes to that.
Thank you, Doc. And Doc is very modest. Most of his research funds have also employed 15 young people in this community over a period of 3 months to do intervention work. And some of the research funds have also paid some people in the community to do transcriptions as well. So whatever goes in there comes back out into the community tenfold. So we want to thank you, and we want to close.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I just would like to bring to your attention the EduFast Durban International Book Fair will be later on this month, and one of our very own authors, who is also the manager of the Austerville Book Club, will be launching her book. It's a story on Heim Street, the inner happenings of Heim Street, a child of Heim Street. So guys, please, I will be flighting, I'm actually her publicist. I will be flighting all the information as of tomorrow. So watch your social medias. Irene Finn will be launching her book. And the EduForce book fair this year will be at Umhlanga, EduForce campus. Thank you.
Thank you. We want to just thank a few people for today. And if I miss out anybody, team, please could you help me out? We want to thank Lonay's. Everybody knows Lonay's Catering, and Kerwin and Splash, and everybody that put the food together, the sound together, which was done so professionally. Please give them a round of applause. We want to thank South Durban Basin Area-Based Management, that's Eureka Singh's office, who's been very accommodating and very supportive in everything that we as the HSRC needs in the community, as well as for many organizations that rely on them. So we are grateful they got us the hall for today. So thank you to Eureka Singh's office. We want to also thank the Aberquan Center, the Dream Center, all of the decor and everything that's the centerpieces. They went out of their way to get us what it is that we need. There's Rochelle, who's one of the coordinators there. So we are grateful for the Dream Center. We also want to thank our colleagues from Cape Town who made their way here, as well as Pretoria. I don't see Busi here. Is Busi here? Busi, can you please stand up? Please, can you give a round of applause to Busi? Busi is not from Wentworth, but Busi made sure that everything that we needed for today, we got. She was the most supportive person in this entire process, and we're just so grateful that she was able to assist us and get things done. So thank you so much, Busi. We couldn't have done this without you. We also want to thank Antonio, who was the brand manager at HSRC, with all of these fancy cameras, which he'll be turning things into documentaries and series and movies. So thank you, Antonio, for all of your help and your assistance. And also to Shanice. Shanice just came down from Cape Town for the day to bring us the books. And she was the one that negotiated the prices so that we can get it at a much cheaper price. So thank you, Shanice, for all your assistance. We also want to thank the Durban East School for their choir. I think they sang beautifully, don't you agree? And Mrs. Q, who was guiding them. To Dance Movement, Jared School of Dancing, thank you so much. To Shardenay and her family. I think Shardenay took us to another level with her singing. I think maybe she and a lot of artists in the community need to collaborate and have a beautiful song about Wentworth, and it can be our anthem wherever we go. We also want to thank the people that we interviewed in the book. We could not do this without you. I mean, hearing your stories, and I'm sure I can attest to everything that the team feels and thinks. We walked in to the book with a certain kind of lens, and we walked away from it looking at the world a little bit differently. Your lessons, your love, your insight was guiding to us. I can't begin to imagine what it will be like for the rest of the community and beyond. So well done to all of you. I also want to thank all of our guests and all of you that came through to spend this day with us. We also want to thank community fathers that are one of the up-and-coming movements in this community that have been providing support to young people within this community that don't necessarily have a father figure. We are grateful for you. Keep doing what you're doing. From the authors to the authors who put their time, their efforts, their energies, their tears, joys. We fought a lot. We fought a lot along this process, but we also laughed a lot. And we found common ground in being able to write the book that we wrote. So a big round of applause to all of you guys and to the authors of this book. Is there anything that I'm missing, team? So with that being said, thank you everybody, and to Happy Valley Radio, who was with us today. Thank you so much. There's Mark. He does a show tomorrow, Sunday, when people are babalas. He plays the best music on the Sunday drive, listening to Happy Valley tomorrow. So all the best, everybody. There's lots of projects and programs going on in this community. We can't wait for the soccer legends, the football legends, to also do something with us. That's going to be great. So thank you to all of you for coming out, and have a good Christmas. Be safe. Keep pushing hard. There's work to be done. Thank you, everybody.